Hey, Leah. Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
Just hit the mute on the side of the owl.
This thing here?
Yep.
Is it on now?
Yep.
All right, 5 o'clock. I guess everybody knows because it kind of got quiet. Nice to see everyone here tonight. We have a select board meeting that is a regular meeting for us. And for those who are not here on a regular basis, we do have an agenda that gets published. And the agenda gets followed. We intend to do that tonight too as well. For everyone that's here that has not been here or been to a selectmen meeting at all, I'm Ron Michael. I'm chair of the board for this year. To my right is Leah Bassbangs, our vice chair, and to her right is selectman member Karen Meehan. So a little introduction. The meeting, the agenda for this evening is we call the select board to order. We do have other municipal boards here. I would ask at this time that the other boards call those boards to order.
Call the advisory board to order.
And do we have Groton Augustus? Okay. All right, so we'll get started. And so I'll ratchet through the agenda first for everybody. The first item is going to be a public forum. The second item is a public forum. The third item is going to be the recognition of the 350th celebration committee that we're going to hand out some awards or certificates tonight. An appointment to the advisory board, an MVP update, which is the municipal vulnerability plan update. Item 6 will be a discussion regarding withdrawal or modification of the regional school district agreement. Item 7 is a special town meeting warrant and resident question and answer period. Item 8 will be special town election early voting. Town administrator's report, and then we will adjourn. And then for those, I don't want to neglect, or to my left is town administrator Jason Silva, and to his right is Sue Fain, our executive assistant. So that's the introduction. What I would like to do is, I'm actually going to come down off the stage, and we're going to do the 350th anniversary committee awards. So I wanted to take these awards and distribute them to these folks that worked on this committee. If you went to any of these events, particularly the gala that was last October or September, it was extremely well done. These folks met on a regular basis and crafted a year-long program of different events. The last one being the 350th hoedown, which was held back on October 14th. And there was a significant amount of work that these folks did. And it's unprecedented to have had and to have had this sort of a group work so hard to put this together. And I wanted to take an opportunity tonight to kind of memorialize it. So I'm going to jump down off the stage. Actually, I'm going to walk around so I don't fall.
For those that are over there are a few more seats, but you have to probably get to know your neighbor. I'm sure you know that already, but otherwise, we do have it online at home too, if you prefer to watch it online.
There's folding chairs downstairs. If you want to bring some.
So, that being said, the first one I have hand on here is Kathy Stees. Kathy. And Kathy was the chair of the board. Is that, do I have that right? Next, David Kempton. David, are you around? Next, Erica Flynn. Erica. Okay, Nicole Tully. Nicole. Okay. Sue Fain. How could you forget Sue? John Crandall. Mike Fahey. And last, I don't know if she's here tonight, Debbie Courtney. Debbie, so again, this is a great opportunity for all of us to express our thanks to these folks. They, I tell you, they work, and they worked with some really difficult issues for a really long time, and they did an awesome job. And I'm so glad that everybody's here tonight, and that we could acknowledge their participation in this group. They worked tirelessly and did a great job. Thank you, everyone.
Anybody out there want to come in and speak for one? Already was. Yeah.
Yeah, just.
Okay, next item is appointment to the advisory board. And this is for the appointment of Robert Rafferty to the advisory board. And at the same time, the appointment of Alan Chase to the Conservation Commission. Do we have Mr. Rafferty and Mr. Chase here? Do we have a motion?
I move to appoint Robert Rafferty to the advisory board for a term to expire on May 18th, 2024. I also move to appoint Alan Chase to the Conservation Commission for a term to expire on June 30th, 2022.
All in favor? Aye. Congratulations, gentlemen. Look forward to it. You guys all set with MVP? All right, next item on our agenda is going to be an update on MVP, which, as I said before, is Municipal Vulnerability Plan Preparedness. Preparedness. And Jason, our town administrator, and you have a speaker here?
Yeah.
Langley?
Yep. So we have two consultants here, a town engineer, Dave Langlace, and then Janet, who's with Weston and Sampson. So I think Jenny is going to do most of the presentation, but we've received a grant from EOEA in the amount of, I think, around $37,000 to conduct this MVP planning process. We've had a lot of stakeholder engagement. We're excited about how the project's going. So this is an opportunity to give an overview to the board and also to the public on where we're at and what we're trying to accomplish. So you can take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. We know we have other custom discussion items tonight. Appreciate your time. So Jason just mentioned the two things the town does is undertaking a combination of community resilience building, and this is through a state program that was enacted in 2017, helping communities be more prepared to be resilient to natural hazards like snowstorms, ice storms, flooding, extreme weather, as well as preparing a natural hazard mitigation plan, and that's in compliance with federal environmental management agency requirements. The Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, or the MVP program, this is statewide. You can see the map on the right there that's showing the Commonwealth and the communities that have participated. The blue shaded communities have gone through this initial planning process, and all the folks that have a pink or a purple dot, they've received follow-up grant funding to implement some kinds of action to help the community reduce flooding at a location, like replacing a culvert or undertaking sort of an extensive policy amendment or outreach program. And so this two-step process requires us to go through this initial sort of planning piece, and we're really grateful to the folks who have been participating in the stakeholder group of about 20 who came and spent 2 4-hour sessions trapped in a room talking about all of this together and really thinking about Dunstable and the community. And so we wanted to give an update on that tonight and also talk about how it overlaps with the community's natural hazard mitigation plan process to continue to be eligible for federal funding from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And this diagram is just showing a flow of the chapters that are in a hazard mitigation plan. It's a standard process and it's regulatory. The reason we do this work is there's a FEMA statistic on the right there. Every dollar spent on preparedness saves $6 on response. And I like this because it helps us really put in perspective how worthwhile it is to spend this, $37,000 up front just now and get the benefits. It's helping Dunstable be more proactive about health and safety for its residents and businesses, getting eligibility for grant for a pot of money the community is already eligible for. Thinking about equity, providing outcomes to those who may be disproportionately impacted by a snowstorm or rain event because they can't leave their house, or when their power goes out, they really don't have access or ability like others do to get goods and services they need. It's about building consensus as a community too for the actions that are most important, to prioritize those for further funding. Just to give you guys a sense of where we are in our planning, we've done quite a bit of work since August, and right now we are basically halfway through the process with this public meeting. We're going to be working on putting a full plan together, and that plan will be available to the public. So if you're interested in this, there is a way to get more information, take a look at the plan. We're anticipating it will be out at the end of March, early April, and there will be a 60-minute final presentation of the plan with great opportunity for comment and questions.
That 16-minute presentation is going to be virtual, correct?
That is going to be virtual, yep. So it'll be a great way if you're doing other things at night to listen in and chat your questions or pay attention to the parts that most interest you. At the end of this, we submit this plan to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, to the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for their approval. That gives Dunstable designation under the state program. And we also submit it to the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, and that initiates a review process. It's regulatory. I think some of you have seen this. This went out. We've had good responses, but I'm going to encourage you, if you're sitting here and you just want to take a survey while you're sitting and listening to me for 5 more minutes, feel free to pull your phone up and scan the QR code. No problem.
Tap the button.
I was
We
here.
did discuss points we brought up through the survey, things that we received from people. I think we had 27 or 30 some odd responses.
We're up to 65.
Wow, we're up to 65.
65, nice job.
So we did use that at our 2 in-person planning sessions, 2 4-hour sessions. A lot of what you reported was consistent with a lot of what the other stakeholders who were present discussed. But it's also good to hear real input that people have to deal with some of these issues, power outages, heavy snow, wind, things like that, elevations, all that.
We are here because there are predictions of different weather patterns that may increase more winter precipitation, maybe in snow, but maybe in ice. And we even heard about that at the workshops that we have with stakeholders. Thinking about how these storm events will affect our economy. One of the statistics I thought was really interesting is just thinking about in the very short term, an additional annual cost of $9.3 million a year on flood damage increases. I mean, that's pretty significant to our state. There's another statistic over here about temperatures increasing transportation infrastructure costs by maintenance by over $140 million by 2070. That's a pretty significant amount of burden to our to our communities. So we are thinking about how those impacts affect Dunstable directly. We're looking at a specific list of what are called natural hazards. So this isn't man-made hazards, it's not biohazards. It's really things that are sort of caused in nature. And we are looking at how likely they are to impact Dunstable, and then what is the consequence in Dunstable. And we, as a group, talked about that likelihood of occurrence, the probability, which is on the graph shows up the left side, and the consequence of that occurrence being greater as you go towards the right of the screen. So for example, landslides. Not a big likelihood in Dunstable, and if they were to happen, very small impact, small area. Whereas things like severe winter weather and nor'easters really could have a big impact on the community with power outages, extreme temperatures, hotter weather, colder weather, right? Like needing more cooling in the summer, thinking about those really frigid days in the winter and how they might affect our ability to get to the store. So we talked a lot about these in our workshops, and we're still getting, the final details as part of developing the plan. We think about those natural hazards as how are they impacting Dunstable's assets, and that term is sort of a FEMA term, if you will, but assets are the people of Dunstable, so certain population, school, the daycares, the Y camp, senior center, the library, volunteers. This is just some examples, not the full list.
The full list is about 6 pages long.
Yep. Thinking about our structures, right, so our municipal buildings, the water tower, the dams, and even places like the churches and other private structures. Thinking about the system, the power grid, the water system, communications, roadways and culverts, our economy, right, so the businesses in town, as well as all of the things that matter to Dunstable and sort of make Dunstable, like those community activities that people really like to go to. And the list on that was very long as well. And finally, thinking about those historic, cultural, and natural resources. Again, these are pieces of what makes Dunstable with great amount of protected and open space, forested land, the water bodies, the recreational areas, the rail trail, your fields, green fields, and the historic buildings throughout town. And what we're looking at is, okay, well, how are these natural hazards affecting these assets, and what can we do about it? And what we can do about it is come up with mitigation actions. I'm not going to read the definition on here, it's long, but basically we're thinking about what can you do before you have a natural hazard event to prepare for it proactively. What could you do to be more effective during an event? Do you need more snowplows? Do you need better communications? Do you need a second billboard sign in front of a different building? And then following up on some kind of event, do you need additional cleanup planning? Do you need more places to store snow in the winter if you're running out of room? Is there more planning to come up with? And we as a group came up with a whole list of actions. I think there were, let's see.
A lot.
We'll
We'll be able to make this available on the website, right?
Yeah.
So there is a website, on the town website, there's a section for MVP, stores our information there currently. This presentation will be there too, you give it a read through some of the highlights of what we discussed.
Some of the ideas that folks came up with were thinking about more resilience for the fire department, the lot and the station building itself. Thinking about an evaluation of road infrastructure and a management plan, thinking about sort of erosion, the road edges and the rutting that people have observed. Talking about an improved communication plan for priority populations, those folks that I mentioned that may be more susceptible to be impacted by a snowstorm or a rain event or extreme windstorm. We talked about creating cooling areas, whether they be natural or sort of structural solutions at various locations in town. Thinking about culvert and dams, doing an inventory, thinking about how they will flood down in the future, how that will affect roadways and possibility of roadways. Coming up with enhanced education outreach for invasives related to private wells, trees, public and private. Thinking about the water tower, doing a review of local bylaws and regulations for climate resilience. So that might be ways to improve locally how the community can think forward about buildings. Adding air conditioning to the school. Some of the other top actions were thinking about implementing building envelope actions at the Union School, improving access to roads, to forested areas for fire response. Sometimes some of those locations that we heard were tough to get into. Thinking about flooding and mitigation of impacts from new development projects. Doing a flood study of the Department of Public Works highway garage. Developing policies for use of the library and council on aging to create more accessibility there. And I'm not going to read this slide, but there's a whole list of other items that weren't prioritized as high by the group, but are going to be considered in that final report and have room for folks to provide input on them.
The goal of the report is building block for applying for the grant process. So this first step that we talked about is the planning grant. So the state gives us funding to do this action, do this with the community. We're actually one of only 10 communities left within the 350 municipalities of Massachusetts that hasn't done this yet. So we're definitely behind on this, but we're now getting into the game. This process is going to be a precursor to some of the other grant programs they have coming out, but also gives us a roadmap of here's some actions we can take. And we use everything that we found there. We can, on an annual basis, reprioritize those things. If we find that some things have risen to the top, become more of a problem, some things have fallen to the bottom because we might have thought there was just a time that there's not. We prioritize that list and we can apply for funding from the state. Some match programs to be 25% community, 35% state to address them.
So with that, we're wrapping up here. Just keep, as I mentioned, we really hope folks will pay attention to this process and engage with the public review next spring. Excuse me. And with that, we're done. So we made it. We hit our 10 minutes.
Good to go.
Close enough, yeah, no, it's great.
Thank you, guys. I'll give that to
Does
Jason.
anyone have any questions for us on this topic before we move on?
You're free.
Okay, you can reach us by reaching to Jason. I believe my contact information is online as well. I can get information over there. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is item 6, which will be a discussion regarding withdrawal or modification from the Groton-Dunstable Regional School District Agreement, which is probably the reason why we have so many people tonight. There's a couple things, how we're going to process this discussion is our town administrator does have a slide deck that he has that will present all of the issues that are on the table to be discussed. And he's going to do that, but before he does that, I'm going to ask Selectman Meehan, who wants to share his thoughts on this matter. And then there absolutely will be a question and answer period for everybody to get the discussion or your thoughts shared or get your information, whatever you need, that will come after the presentation, the slide deck presentation. So, Karen, if you'd like to.
So, thank you for everybody coming. I know it's not always the most fun thing to come to town hall on the weekend. We're here a lot of the time, but thank you for coming. We never have so many people come to a meeting or even a Memorial Day parade, so it's pretty so yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a couple things. This is a conversation. I was the one who said it on Facebook, and I'm impressed that this many people are so strongly passionate about this topic. It's a conversation because of Dunstable's popularity as a town, the number 5 town in the state, which is great. But we have a budget situation that we can't keep up with. And The schools are tremendously important to the community, but you have to pay for schools just like you have to pay for police, fire, highway, and you have to pay your own home bills. So I think it's important to realize, how unsustainable some budgets may be. Like, I'm a terrible budgeter in my own family. My wife is in charge of the money, I get my allowance, and I try not to overspend. But when I do, if I buy a pair of skis and I overspend, like, Kieran, that's not sustainable. You can't buy a new pair of skis every year. So you have to sort of guess and check and work with each other, and we as a town have to work with each other to collaborate on how to best allocate our sources of funds. And that's primarily on the shoulders of you guys as residents. You pay the tax bills. It's almost 100% of our money in town is from your work and your time that you spend away from your family, like in an office, working in a garden, wherever you are, traveling on the road. So it's vastly, dependent upon the success that you have in your own work environment. So I know a lot of people online ask about like a plan and a vision. That's what this conversation is. That's the intent. People want to know about selling land, putting businesses in town, being more like Groton. Groton's a beautiful, amazing town, but their restaurants and their commerce area is like 25 years plus in the making. We won't have that next year, no matter what we do. It takes time, it takes economic growth, it takes a master plan, and we have a lot of that, but we have to catch up. And looking at next year, we've worked with the school committee, we've worked with our own budgets and boards. We realized we may not be able to afford the budget that our children need. So working with the school committee, our advisory board, and our colleagues in the town, we have to determine how can we best allocate that money that comes from your paychecks into the schools, into the highways, into police, fire, etc. So again, this is a conversation about collaborating, working together, and trying to figure out what the residents want. Again, we don't get a lot of interaction with people, and I know people are busy. I'm not trying to put that on your shoulders to say, show up more often, but we have a town meeting next week, and I don't know if anybody even knows that. Like, how many people know we have a special town meeting next week? How many of you are planning to go to it? How many of you are planning to vote in the special town ballot? But not everyone. I mean, and you realize it's for the PFAS at the high school. All right, that's refreshing, because we have no sense that people are interested in that topic at all, anything really. So again, we know it's a lot to have to think about the town and, things that are important to you, but these are critically important to your children, and if you're leaving your house to your children in this town, it's making it sustainable for the future. That's all I have to say. I mean, I'm just trying to encourage people to stay positive, not just, you can yell at me if you want, I can take it, I got thick skin. But try not to yell at your fellow residents and the volunteers that do this. Like, we get no money out of this. This is for trying to help the community, just like your school committee member reps, the folks who've gotten, this is volunteerism. You can answer the phone. And I think Jason, our TA, is going to present sort of a quick slide deck on what we shared with the joint meeting last week with Groton Select Board, Groton Advisory, and the school committee member folks. And that may lead to questions and hopefully some ideas and sort of where you want things to go in the spring. Again, this is for spring of 24, the fiscal year 25 budget. Put that correctly. Yeah, very good. Yeah. I'll leave it to Jason now, or Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead. You both again?
Just to quickly say that again, Kieran did iterate that this is simply a discussion because of the assessment, the draft assessment that the school has given us so far, and it is a completely unsustainable number for the town to absorb. Back in 2016, there was sort of a similar situation, and the select board went forward and had a study done on the school district and the potential of leaving, what our options were. And this is just sort of an extension of that. This is not a novel idea. This concept has been looked at and discussed many, many, many times. So again, because we're in a moment of financial crisis and desperation to how can we best educate Dunstable students, we felt this is our due diligence, is to bring this conversation up again and see, is it even feasible? Are there other options? Can we work with the school to try to get that number down? I mean, this is really all this conversation is. It's, there's no vote being taken on leaving the district tonight. That is not where we are. It's not what's happening tonight. It's not on the special town election, town meeting next week. So we're just here to sort of find the best way to finance and educate the Dunstable kids.
Jake Bluwan, Jake is chair of the advisory board, also known as the finance committee.
So just as, I agree with everything that both of you both just said. Obviously, nobody's here that wants to be in this position to even consider this, obviously based upon all the situations, we have to look at everything that's in front of us. Looking at the projections that have been provided to us, but just not this year. This is a 5-year situation that we have been provided by the school district. It's not just this year, we find an override, we find the money. Obviously, the interest is here based upon the fact that we're, considering all of the options. We have to consider the options. That's what, as elected officials, what our intention is to do, is to be able to go out there and see what our options are. But this is a 5-year projection that it's looking at. So that's it. And to try to take $1 million out of what's remaining of our budget that doesn't go to the school system would decimate the town. And I'm choosing my words appropriately, I believe, that we wouldn't have, you would close the library, you'd get rid of the police, the police officers would be down to maybe 1 a shift. The fire department would have to be volunteer, if not a community fire prevention. This would be a situation that would be dire for our community. So we don't use these words or try to look at these things lightly. We understand the impact that it's going to have to everyone here. But realistically, it's something we need to look into because of the fact that the spending has gotten to the point where it's not sustainable.
Thank you.
You ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. So this is a brief overview. I'm going to try to move through this fast because there's a lot of people here who want to say things, and we want to hear from everybody. So I will be as quick as possible. But I also want to give some context to the discussion so that people have some understanding of what the finances are here. So I'm going to start with this fiscal year 24 and what we had to do, go to 25, briefly talk about the 2016 study that was done that Leah mentioned, and then some short long-term strategies. But before that, I want to reiterate what I think everyone just said. No one wants to be here. No one wants to have this conversation. No one wants to leave the school. So let's get that out now. Nobody wants to. That's not, we all understand that's not a desirable decision, and it's not one anyone wants to make here.
Some want to be here.
What's that?
Some people want to be here. We should have done like after
Sorry.
site or something.
No one wants to be here for this reason. Let me say that. But, and I do also want to acknowledge, I think it's really important to acknowledge, we have meetings all the time with advisory, finance, with school committee, and with it's the select board, and with smaller groups of all of them. And there are some times when we violently disagree on things, and it's adversarial, and we don't like what each other says. They don't like what I say. I don't like what they say. But I do want to acknowledge the fact that, and I think it's important to say that we're all I think we all understand we're coming from the same place, which is what's best for the community. And I really appreciate that about everyone I work with. I have the honor to work with on these committees. It's a lot of volunteer time. It's a lot of effort. And it's clear that whatever we're advocating for, we don't always agree by a lot. But it's always that we're coming from what we think is best for the school district, for the town, and in most cases both. So I do want to put that out there because it's not helpful to point fingers, play the blame game and all that. So, but I did also want to say, this is part of kind of worst case scenario process, considering, okay, the worst case scenario for us, what the heck are we going to do and what are our options? And the board, as a 3-member board, can't have one-on-one conversations because it's a violation of the open meeting law. So the only way we can really have this type of conversation is in front of you tonight. So So that's part of why we're here, is really trying to prep for the worst case scenario financially. So this fiscal year, real quick, as you probably remember, there was a request for an override in the amount of approximately $300,000. It passed town meeting. It failed at the ballot by 6 votes. So what did that mean? It meant reductions in a whole host of municipal departments. The school side was funded as requested. Now, to get to that number, there was a lot of give and take. So it wasn't like, oh, this is what we need, okay, here's the check. There was a lot of give and take throughout the budget process to get to a number. They were funded at a little less than 7% increase for this fiscal year in '24. So this kind of gives you an idea. Overall schools, 6.2. Town operations was a reduction in debt service. We saw a reduction in year to year, about 3.25%. So what were this kind of outlines categorizes the reductions in each department. What are the real consequences? So in the police department, they lost a police officer for the overnight shift. So we have 1 police officer running overnight now, which is not what we want to do. For the fire department, we lost a per diem shift during the day. So we have 1 per diem shift during the day. Everything else is call. Highway was looking to add a new employee. They have 3 people in their department. They're hoping to have two crews of 2, so that we could get more work done, but that didn't happen. And then there was a variety of other cuts, mostly in town hall, that were made to balance. In addition to that, we had to use reserve funds, which are one-time revenues, to help close the gap as well, which is about $95,000. So I just also wanted to mention, we are aggressive in looking at ways to do things more efficiently. This fiscal year alone, we have partnered with the town of Pepperell to share services. So our treasure collector position, which was, it used to be just a town employee in Dunstable, we're now sharing our position with the town of Pepperell to get better service and save some money. And the same situation goes with our town clerk. We actually hired the town clerk in Pepperell to help cover Dunstable, which actually will, I think, result in better service and savings. So it's an ongoing process as we move through the year. We're always evaluating how we do things, how we deliver services, and if there are ways, when there are opportunities, if there are ways that we can do it either better, cheaper, or hopefully both. So FY25, so real quickly, our revenue. We are projecting about $400,000 in new revenue for next year in FY25. That is pretty typical to what we end up seeing. It's about 3% revenue growth. So the advisory committee and the select board has set a goal that we drop down on our reserve fund reliance. We've been using basically our savings account to fill an operational hole every year, and that the hole just keeps growing and growing. So what we've done is that it's not sustainable to do that. We're going to reduce that by $50,000 each year to get to a number that's appropriate. So you have to reduce our overall revenue by 50 because we're taking 50 out of the pool. In addition to that, we funded no capital this fiscal year in our operational budget. So all our facilities, all our roads, our infrastructure, we didn't fund capital. We used ARPA federal funds because they were available, thankfully, this fiscal year to fund all of our capital. ARPA funds gone next fiscal year. So we have to add back that, or our buildings are just not going to be maintained and we'll have bigger problems down the road. So not that 120 is a huge number, but that's essentially our rolling average over the last 3 or 4 years. So that's what we've included in 25 for our forecast. So overall, that brings our available new revenue to $230,000. Sorry, I'm talking fast, but I'm trying to get through this. So the regional school district is approximately 62% of our overall budget spending. So if you take 62% of the available revenue, that allows for a $144,000 increase in the schools, which is 1.8% increase, and an $500,000 in the town. It's a little under 2% increase.
That's the taxes you pay.
Yes. That's within
The
the
revenue is defined as our property taxes and the assessments that went up, myself included, as well as your excise tax, things like that. Like if you bought a nice Lamborghini, you probably wrote a check to the town for $2,500 for your excise tax. Maybe more. But if you want to buy another one, that's sort of where revenue comes from. You give you sort of the lay of the land to it. Yeah, I'm just redundant. So I'd rather just make sure everyone understands where things are coming.
So this is an overview of our expenditures. I'm not going to go through all of this, but our largest expenditures are schools at 66%. This is our forecasted 25 number, and public safety at 12%. And this is just forecasted out our percent increases. So the schools are seeing 3.5. That's including the technical school. So all in, this is the deficits we're looking at, which are moving targets. These are based on assumptions and forecasts, which guaranteed will change. So these are not in, they're not etched in stone by any stretch, but they're pretty close. It's going to be pretty close. And so again, if you apportion the new revenue based on 6238, these are the deficits on each side of the aisle. So for the town side, we're projecting a deficit of a little less than $90,000. On the school side, the regional school district, we're projecting a deficit of $977,000. So why are we here? We're scared, okay? Because we can't fund that. That's wildly more than what we can afford. And so this slide tries to give you an idea of the magnitude of the problem. I'm not sure how well it does, but this is my attempt to do so. So if you add up the projected department budgets in highway, fire, and library, their budgets in total are $1.1 million. The deficit is about that size. Again, if you look at our overall spend on the town side, expenses are 1.3, salaries are 2.2, and then insurance assessments are about $1 million. The deficit is about 23% of our overall town side expenditures. Now, our insurance and assessments at $1 million. I mean, if you lose heads, you'll save some money on that. Not that I'm advocating for that by any stretch, but if you do, you'll save some money on insurance. But that's not operations. You're still going to have, well, I don't know, $850,000. So you got to really eat into the operational side, which is actually more like $4 million, under 4. So it's really it's a real challenge. Okay, so this just is a graphic of the regional school district is requesting a 1.1 million. All our new revenues, all in, even if you take out the reduction of free cash from the capital, is 400. That's the new revenue. The new increase, the new spending in our assessment. I keep saying budget. I'm sorry. They're going to correct me on that. It's the Dunstable assessment, not the budget. The increase in Dunstable assessment. Sorry. I know. I always do that. I apologize. It's the assessment to Dunstable, not their budget. The increase in the assessment is 1.12 million. Our new revenue all in is only $400,000. So you see the difference in it's just not sustainable. All right. This gives just a quick, Jake just mentioned the 5-year plan. This just gives you a comparison between actual spending and what was projected in the 5-year plan. I do want to say, I want to preface, if you look at my 5-year plan 3 years from now, it will vary from actual spending. So this is not a criticism at all, because you probably could do the same to my assumptions as well in 3 years, but it's just the reality of the situation. Difference between 22 and 23 actually was to the good, but then difference between in 23, 24 and projected 24, 25 is larger. Now, I also want to make sure I mention there have been some discussions recently that may change the deficit on the school side. So their excess and deficiency funds, which is basically their savings account, they've been doing the same thing that the town side has to make ends meet annually, year over year. So their initial proposal included removing all of their E&D, their savings from the budget, which spiked the assessment to both Dunstable and Groton. They are now talking about potentially adding some of that revenue back into the mix and then do I think a similar, correct me if I'm wrong, but do a similar strategy that we're talking about, which is kind of step off of it over a course of time. Okay. And then the other piece that's being discussed right now, which is both of these need to be approved by the school committee. But the other thing that is being discussed right now, as I understand it, is that rather than their original proposal was getting rid of the kindergarten fee entirely. That again, losing that entire piece of revenue, $400,000 to $500,000, was increasing again the town of Dunstable's assessment. So they're now talking about doing something similar with the kindergarten fee, stepping down off the kindergarten fee over a period of time, starting with this year with a $1,000 reduction. Correct? Okay. So the important part about that does change the deficit between what we originally were forecasting, and if the school committee approves that, it does go down to $795,000. It's still a big problem, folks, but we're moving in the right direction, right? So, but we still have a problem on our hands, but it's a reduction to where we were. Okay. So I got 2 quick slides on this. So as Leah said, this was far before my time, so I did some studying and research on this over the weekend. But so there was a 2016 effort to look at an analysis of the good, the bad, the ugly around withdrawing from the regional school district. What were the benefits? What were the negatives? Was it a real viable option? What's the process to accomplish it? And what are some options at the end of the day? So, and apparently I think this was, it sounded like, based on what I read, the motivation behind this was mostly related to declining enrollments in the school district and in Dunstable. This is a long list of stuff, so it gives you an idea of how complicated and the varying amount of challenges that exist to actually withdraw from the school district. It is not an easy task. I'm going to read through these because it is important for us to understand this as part of the conversation after this presentation, but I'll be quick. So cost of central admin is currently shared. It would not be. It would likely increase if we were to withdraw. Finding qualified staff for smaller districts is more difficult because we have less resources to spend. Essentially, all contracts would need to be renegotiated. Union, transportation, everything. Because the existing contracts are with the regional school districts, that would no longer exist. Regional transportation reimbursement, we would not receive that because we would not be a regional. If I'm getting anything wrong, school district folks, let me know. One item that was mentioned in the report is just the variety of courses and levels, AP levels. Sports activity likely decline, again, just because of available resources. A higher likelihood of students wanting to choice out of district. grant competitiveness and how to split existing funds if withdrawal happens. Existing financial liabilities within the district would need to be proportioned between the two communities. In-house special education programs would be harder to offer, which would likely cause increased external placements, which are very costly to the district. And then just facilities, where are they appropriate, are they sufficient, et cetera. And that is not, I'm quite sure, an exhaustive list. So, but that is those are many of the challenges that we would face in doing so. Yeah, okay. So I just put this up there because this is what we're striving for. We know we have to balance the budget, but we should be forecasting revenues conservatively. We should be matching our annual reoccurring revenues with our annual reoccurring expenditures, which we don't do. To be clear, we're not doing that. We're using one-time revenues to fund reoccurring expenditures, which is not a good practice. And we should match one-time revenues with one-time expenditures. We should be monitoring positive, negative outside budgetary influence, especially right now, given the financial climate that people are anticipating. And then always your budget, your spending plan should reflect essentially your strategic plan, like your values, your priorities of your community. And I think, that's a focus of mine. I haven't been here a year yet, so I'm still getting my feet under me, but that is a focus of mine moving forward, is making sure we're working with departments and boards to identify what is important in the community, what our values are here, and base our spending decisions on those things. Short and long-term strategies. So I hate to say this, but our short-term options, we don't have a lot of options. We have two. One is dramatic reductions in town-side services if an override fails, or general fund override short-term. Those are the options. That's it. There are no other options. We kind of stage these options. So next year's options potentially. So these options, by the way, none of them are going to solve the problem. It's got to be a combination of everything that's going to solve this problem. And some of these may be good ideas, some of them may not be good ideas. And these are ideas that since I've been here, I've heard people talk about. There's ongoing discussions about a lot of them. But a lot more work needs to be done on a lot of them in order to figure out how we're going to move forward and what the recommendation should be to the community. And these are community decisions. These really need to be community decisions. That's why I'm psyched that so many people are here to have this conversation, because no, this is great.
Really?
I hate that it's for the reason we're here, but I'm really happy to see everybody here. So, but the rest of these are really kind of community discussions, conversations, and decisions that need to happen in order to figure out what direction we're headed. So meals, there is a local option meals tax. That's not going to bring in much revenue because there aren't a lot of restaurants, right? Retail marijuana, that's a revenue stream, but is that consistent with what the community is looking for in Dunstable? We have local fees. That's part of we generate about between $700,000 and $750,000 annually in fees, permits, inspections, etc. We are going to look at, are we in the market in terms of what we charge for those things with comparable communities. So we're going to look at that. You don't want to be on the high end, but you don't necessarily want to be on the low end either. So somewhere in the middle would be nice. And so we're going to kind of do some work to evaluate that now. And then long-term options, economic development, are there areas or parcels in the community that the community says, hey, or residents say, hey, these parcels may be worth looking at for increased economic development, commercial development, etc., housing, and lease or sell town-owned land. And there's good and bad, again, there needs to be a lot of analysis and valuation on the cost benefit to doing so. And that's all I have to say. You've heard a lot, you've heard enough from me, but that's the bad news in a nutshell, I guess. So, thank you.
Okay, we do have the superintendent here with us tonight. Dr. Laura, would you like to share your thoughts on any of this? I don't put you on the spot here, but.
No, we've been working very closely with Jason and with the finance board and the select board. We want to continue to do that. I met with several members of that board last week. I know that the chair has been hoping that we can actually set up a more frequent and more combined working group. As you've seen, those are my recommendations. The school committee has not voted on those. Do it again and again and again. And there may be some other things, unfortunately not as pleasant as the things that, the recommendations I made thus far. But we really want to work with every child in the Groton School Regional School District is important to us. And we understand the limitations of both towns. We certainly want to work with you. But as you all well know, the inflation rate is very high, and we're not, away from that. It affects us as well. The other thing is that Jason talked about, we had ARPA funds. We were very generously given ARPA funds by both the towns, and we were given ESSER funds, very minimal. But those things that's why you see, I think, this spike. For years, we've been kind of living off of the ESSER and ARPA funds and it's been foreshadowing what's been happening. So thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Okay, with that being said, we will open this up to anyone who has questions or would like to make a comment about anything that they've heard. Stacy?
Thank you. I just want to reiterate what the superintendent said and just stress to everyone that school budget is still in development. It's not finalized. We very much want to work with the boards and be collaborative in that. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
Lacey and Matthew are your school committee member reps, just to make sure everyone knows who everyone is within the room, and Dr. Chesson is the superintendent of the school, and Brian and Ted from the Groton side of the school committee, so just making sure everyone knows who we all are.
Okay.
I know it was one of the meetings that I went to, and I think my memory's not the best, but I can't remember, what was the driver behind removing the cost from the kindergarten?
What was the
What was the driver for taking the cost for kindergarten away? Is that the whole day kindergarten?
Laura, do you want to answer that?
There's less than 60 towns in the state of Massachusetts that require a fee for full-day kindergarten. Certainly this research that full-day kindergarten has a positive educational effect. And there is a desire to have equity among all families so that they can be able to send their child to full-day kindergarten should they decide to do that. We do have financial assistance, but for whatever reason, some families are not comfortable applying for that financial assistance.
Matt Naughton?
For those of you who didn't go to school committee meetings ago, my biggest concern is that I hear school committee here tonight saying to us, I want to give feedback. They didn't want to hear it that meeting. The way that the selectmen and the guys both towns were spoken to that meeting was to me horrendous. Awful. And they didn't want to hear it. They said basically, give us the money or else. So I mean, how do you support that?
How many decibel students currently attend Groton School?
22% of 2373 today. Every day, just a little bit. So, okay, around 400, off the top of my head, between 400.
Okay, so can I have a second question?
Absolutely.
So out of the 400 decibel kids that currently are on Groton High School, and first of all, thank you so much for all your work into this. I really appreciate all the information presented to the other person. I understand and I think of it myself. So, and I'm glad to hear that this isn't your ideal solution, which makes me hopeful. But I, only believe so much what you read on social media. I get that too. But I'm concerned that the solution that was shared is that the high school students with school choice, even North Middlesex or Kingsborough, that would be the closest one, right? So currently, there's 0 school choice options in the North Middlesex School District. So if that is a decision that gets made, 1 year, there might be no first spots open for our kids to go there. The next year, there might be 5. So if there's none in Kingsborough and none at North Middlesex, is it just up to parents to try to find a place to put their kids in high school? I just want to make sure that's something that's considered, because those were the 2 options, and
Yeah, I
That
don't
is
think,
not even part of the conversation.
So
I'm not quite sure where that
so
sort
would
of
we be
started.
building our own?
No.
no, based on that,
That's
like based on that 2016 study, which is online, it's also on the Facebook thread, which I responded to, there's like 113 comments
Yes,
on
I
it,
saw
stuff
it.
like that. So there are a bunch of different scenarios. That was back in 2016, a lot's changed since then. We have no concept of where schools, you know, we send, you know, little Johnny off to wherever, or little Susie off to wherever. We have no concept of that. And I think any of those type of ideas or concepts are purely that, they're just ideas and concepts, and nothing more, because there's no legwork. Yeah,
So, but if this is something that has to be decided for the 2005 school year, 2006,
This
like,
isn't,
No.
It's not being decided for
which
that.
I'm glad to hear that too. So I don't know when the idea, when we can make a decision, I don't know if you put to a vote for the town to make a decision about this as a possibility, because there's so many more other conversations that have to happen besides just the town deciding yes or no.
You know, it's still off in the distance. There's contractual language in the regional agreement, which stipulates that a withdrawal would occur over a 24-month period. And so just it's just kind of a 10,000-foot discussion, all right? This activity about separating or modifying from the regional school district is in parallel with a whole lot of other things that we've got going on. But if we were to continue on a path forward, we would need to engage a consultant, right? And that consultant would have to prepare a significant amount of information. That would go to the town to vote that. The discharge of that regional school agreement is not a decision this board is going to make in of itself. It would, and it may need to go to a ballot. I'm not sure. We haven't reached that point yet. But at this point in time, this is an opening discussion, but please don't misunderstand me. This is a serious discussion because quite frankly, our options are getting limited every year. I've been doing this a long time with Dunstable. I know Dunstable by the numbers. And there's only one other person I know of that's here that knows it more than me, and that's Harold Simmons. Okay, this is the worst we've ever seen it. This is the worst we've ever seen it. This is absolutely a financial crisis on our doorstep. And so, as the executive board of the town, we've got to take some action here to start looking at all these things because they do take time to work out. The problem of the funding issue that you're hearing tonight is not going to get resolved through a dissolving the regional agreement. That 800-pound Komodo dragon is still sitting out there waiting for us. And it needs to get resolved, and it is absolutely a full-fledged crisis. This board talks about this issue at every one of our meetings. This is a big deal, and we get it. And so that's kind of how all that would go. So just so you have some frame of reference, it would be a couple of years before we would either modify or withdraw it, and there's a significant amount of process that's in place before that could even take place.
Before you even get to that point, there would have to be a study to see if it is even feasible.
Feasible.
So when we did that study in 2016, it was partly because of the enrollment was declining, by the Dr. Rodriguez put that study out. So we were sort of thinking at the time, and there was also the Florence Roach was going to be starting their construction. So all of the Groton students would be taken out of Swallow Union, and the numbers were going down. So we hired a consultant to do a study to determine if Dunstable could feasibly educate all of Dunstable students at Swallow Union. And that study is what came out, which Kieran said is posted. And it provided a lot of scenarios, and it basically, the study was, nope, you can't afford to do that. So it brought up some other questions, which one of the things, if we were to do a kindergarten through grade 12, it asks the question, really it doesn't make sense to do that, but is there a willingness of the town to think about tuitioning its secondary students to other districts? That is really what prompted this discussion among the board with 100 other interested folks, was to say, is this even a feasible concept? Can we possibly do this? Do we even want to think about this? We have to find a way to either have the town pass $1 million override, work with the school to keep their budget only increasing at 3%, which I've never seen happen, and it can't for many reasons, but we can only tax people at 2.5%. So unless we are getting revenues in more than 2.5%, we're barely skating on that with 3%, and we have an assessment, a draft assessment from the school that's a 13% increase. If you all have answers, we are happy to hear.
Or it's $1 million every year for 5 years in a row.
So we are just doing our due diligence per this study to think about it.
So hold on for a second. Jason actually has a slide or a flow chart. Let might talk to this a little bit.
Just so if there are any questions on, okay, what the heck's gonna happen and what the process looks like, I'll try to give an outline of that, and then again, if the school district can help support me in this, that would be great. So as I understand it, the regional school district agreement requires 2-year notice, as the chair said. It then requires a vote of Dunstable residents at an annual special town meeting. Then whatever's voted, if it's approved at town meeting, you then, draft the amendment, current agreement to enable withdrawal, notify both select boards. I think at that point, then the town would be required to prepare a long-range education plan, right? A long-range education plan, which, am I scrolling this up?
No, you're doing
Okay,
great.
all right.
Okay, it's actually both counts, and it has both.
Both, right, so both community, but even in advance of that, the town of Dunstable would need to, if we wanted to withdraw. Then the long-range education plan would need to be drafted. Let's see. And then both communities would need to, both communities would need to vote on it, both Groton and Dunstable. And then, if both communities agreed, the Commissioner of Education.
The school committee.
Oh, the school committee, school committee, yeah, gosh. School committee would need to approve it, and then would need to be submitted to Commissioner of Education, and the commissioner could say no, and then it all goes away. So it's at his or her sole discretion on whether or not it's able to move forward. So again, anything I'm missing?
No,
Okay.
that's exactly correct.
So it is not an easy, there's a lot of actions and a lot of work and a lot of approvals that are required in order to accomplish it.
Okay, go back on questions. Maureen.
Thank you. Morning to Depot Street. So much going through my head. First of all, thank you to the board and to the school committee, finance committee. And thank you most of all for calming our fears that this isn't happening tomorrow, because that's mostly what I'm like, oh, what? And also for asking us all to try to step back and remember that we're neighbors, and even though we may not necessarily agree on how we get there, it's a community problem. I don't know if any of you saw, I'm going to use this as an example. Erica Flynn and I, who I did not know before walking in here tonight, were having a little, discussion online. And then I'm like, oh, I'm Maureen Booth. Who are you? Erica Flynn. Oh, I know you. And then we decided after about 10 minutes of that she and I should just go out and solve this, because we're getting along just fine. So when we all come together in a room, it tends to work out better. So I'm appreciative of that. Now, on to this. It sounds like no matter what we do, it's not gonna be good, and potentially withdrawing could be even worse than the people we're in right now. So given all that, it seems like what we really need to do as a town is raise more revenue. And so, I know, I think everyone agrees with that. So how can we, I'm sure everyone wants to know, I wanna know, how can we move it quickly on that? Let's get our own hot shop, I know, maybe that's. I mean, how can we not have to deal with bad or worse or terrible? How can we do that? That's,
One of the major ways to increase revenue is to pass the override, unfortunately.
right, but that just taxes us.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right, well, what is the override cost? Like you said, 5 years, like, let's just go with that first. If today we said, what's the override cost for, like, what would it be today? Just what a rough estimate of that number would be to get us to through the year. We'll just say that, and then come up with a long-term plan
The
for
next,
longer term.
the next 3 year, don't, listen, this is an estimate, but in the magnitude of about $1,000 a year
Per household.
per household. For average single family house,
And then,
per year, it's reoccurring. Now, remember, average single family is half of you gonna pay more, half of you gonna pay less, the average. So roughly, that's really, really back of the napkin stuff, but it's about $1,000.
And that solves the problem for one.
that's what I'm saying.
So then, so
Well-
then,
Create business here tomorrow.
and it's 1,100 the year after,
That's
and it's 1,300 the year after, so it compounds on itself.
Okay.
And then it's not just the school, because we could probably fund the municipal side, really draconian measure, but it's purely up to the schools to find that budget and to be resourceful within those numbers as the town people support it or not support it.
But like, that'll give time to then hopefully do what she's suggesting, bring revenue into the town.
Yeah.
You can't create a business here tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, you can't open a Walmart. right now.
Tomorrow afternoon, so we have to find something, a short-term solution and a long-term solution all in one. That's true, yes.
That's right, that's what we get back by 4 grand.
The town of Groton?
Yeah.
That was there, I think there's a Groton, select board.
Yeah, there is.
Where is it? There he is.
What was the question?
The impact, I know you were looking at a 5-year override, but I think now you're looking at a 3, I don't know if you can talk about the impact.
And we are in the same position you guys are in. I mean, the numbers are staggering, but we're trying to work this through. And I applaud your select board for putting this out there. This is not, their discussion, and I don't want to speak for you guys, it's not about the school system. It's about the fact that both towns are in financial straits, and we're just trying to figure out how to make money. And again, raising revenue, that's it. But we are talking, we're looking at every possible option, a 1 year, a 3 year, a 5 year. And, you know, right now, 3 year seems to be the front runner in terms of what we're gonna do. But again, nothing's cast in stone, as Jason has said. We're just trying to figure this all out.
Erica?
So my question is, so I watched the video and listened to both Jason's and Bud, and I do have questions on the numbers, maybe this isn't the most appropriate time we school committee meeting is. But I know Bud brought up the fact that this isn't necessarily a revenue issue, it's an expense issue. And has the town, it sounded like, and like you just said, Groton has an issue as well. So has there been a discussion between the two towns on how to push back on the expense levels that are rising? And
You mean the expense level by the school?
by the school, yes, but together, both Guthrie and Groton together.
We have absolutely been in those discussions with Groton Finance and Groton Select Board and Groton Town Administrator. And, you know, their issue is much bigger numbers than ours, but it's the same, it has the same complexion to it. You know, they're being challenged to make the district assessment. And, you know, quite frankly, when we opened this meeting tonight, you all heard about a PFAS discussion, which is not even part and parcel to any of this. And Groton's PFAS number is $13 million to fix that water line. It's it's a significant chunk of change. That has nothing to do with any of this operational stuff that we're talking about tonight. And the Dunstable people, all you folks that are here tonight that are registered voters, are being asked to pass an override for $3 million, which is our portion of the corrective action for that water problem.
A debt exclusion, not.
It's not an override. So a debt exclusion has a life cycle of you incur it until it's paid off. An override reoccurs all the time unless you underwrite it. And there have been underrides in Massachusetts, not very many, but there are underrides. So an override, this ballot question that's out for vote for the town is, will you support and allow the town to raise $3 million to support that water line construction? That entire PFAS issue has nothing at all to do with anything that we've talked about tonight. The water wells at the high school are contaminated with that chemical, and the kids are not drinking that water. And there are homes, I don't know what, we have 11 homes in Dunstable that their wells are contaminated with that stuff. And this corrective action is to solve that problem. And that is nothing to do with the district at this point. The two towns met and we decided as a board, along with the Groton Select Board, that we were going to deal with this issue between the two towns. And that's what that vote is next week. That I want to be painfully clear about it. That is not, that money that's being asked for is not going to the school district. It's going to fix the problem. So.
And it's not 3 million, it's 3 million total for the two forms for that.
It's about $90 a year tax law.
Our obligation is a 3.5 total. Yeah.
All right, back on Q&A.
I just have two random questions. Do you know the salary of the library director that's stepping down?
Mary Beth Palace?
Retiring, I just was curious, her salary.
I mean, it's on the town budget.
We're spending $206,000 a year just on the library. Is that what I
Because
read?
the library, I just find that, I was just hearing just doing whatever it was, that she's making $90,000.
Oh, I
No.
Okay. Okay, but it's not, because it's not just so underutilized.
Yeah, I think she's budgeted 20 hours a week.
I was just hearing.
Yeah.
Do we know what
But
her
just not
salary
being
is?
open, like the library
Take this
itself,
off.
I think just the hours, it's not having a lot of people. It's just not open so much, and then the lights and like the whole library thing, I think maybe just to look into that for a month or whatever, just because it's got, just the hours are 10 to 2 or 9 to 1. And then, I know you can't, maybe you can't afford it, but that's something I just was gonna throw out there. And then another thing is just, making money, we don't have a lot of services in the town, so, it's just to try to find funding, between West Auto and Farmhouse Cafe, which doing Rose of Sharon, I mean, we have a few. But I have a $5 million home that just went up on Thorndike Street that was allowed to go in. So, there's just a lot of talk about, it's interesting, there's the whole town, it's a little off.
42.
A $5 million home was
42,000.
approved next to me, so.
So the library director is not $90,000.
42,000.
Provide a little clarification on, so that budget, if I am correct, is over $200,000 just to fund the library a year? And we spent $50,000 on fire?
No.
What did I read that?
Yeah, it was-
We're not, the $50,000 on fire is only what was cut
What was
from last
That
year's
was the last
budget.
budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So to fund the library part of it, how much are we talking here? Because I know we just
yeah.
left the Band-Aid on there, but $200,000 for a library that.
It's approximately $200,000.
In total, so that's staff, consortium fees, all that stuff rolls in, electric bill, gas, water, all that stuff.
So how is that something, if we did want to entertain that about looking into funding and stuff, because I know I'm just trying to nickel and dime here, just like the rest of us, I would say, but.
I mean, that matter needs to circulate through the advisory board, but the option would be significantly reduce the library from where it is now, which kind of makes it not workable, or to just close it all together and take that money back into the town, and you'd end up with a building that's closed until some other point in time when we could figure that out. And it's unclear to me whether or not the library can be closed completely, because there is licensing issues that go back to the state regarding how the library operates. So there's some issues with that. It's not clean. But, we went through financial hardship back a number of years ago, I think in 2009, maybe 2010, and the library budget was at that point substantially reduced. We had to petition the state to allow us to reduce the library fund. So we just couldn't willy-nilly go off and do that. So there's none of these things are as simple as they look, but I assure you, Mary Beth is not making $90,000.
And just one other thing, they've for next fiscal year, they are hiring a new library director. And so the salary for the new person has been, in their 25 proposal, has been reduced. So it will be significantly less than what she's making now.
All right, go back on questions. Did you have a question, sir? Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I had a question. Can you shed some light into how the cost per student is calculated? Because I read the document that you shared, the report that, enrollments were going down in 2016. So what happened between 2016 and now? Why is the cost increasing, right? Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, Dr. Laura?
I would highly recommend that you look on our website. There is a 95-page document. And if you want to know what page your questions on, just send me an email and I'll look in the document for you. I'm not being facetious. I know I don't have time to read a 95-page document either. So if there's a question.
Yeah, that's a question.
If you email me, I will tell you exactly what page it's on. But there's the history of the per pupil expenditure.
Yeah.
So we compare ourselves to 10 towns. And I understand that some of the towns have significantly more wealth, but also some towns have significantly less wealth.
But I think it is a perfect question, though, if we're talking about, because I believe you said that roughly 25% of the students come from Dunstable.
And I think it is an important question to understand, how is the shared budget calculated?
It's based on enrollment. It's based on.
No, I understand, so the enrollment went up.
Yeah, it's about 22,000 per student, which for the state of Massachusetts is right in the median. It's not the highest, it's not the lowest. And we've been the median of the 10 towns that we compare ourselves to. Actually, we're at the bottom for several years. And the reason I point to that document is because it will show you all the per pupil expenditures from 2013, I think, all the way up to the current. So there's 10 years worth of per pupil expenditures, so you can see how it moves. And I'm happy to
Sure.
send me your question, and I'll tell you exactly what you said.
The gentleman in the back with the baseball hat on, I can't.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Amanda, I'm sorry. The hat throws me.
I had a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Back to the subject of deregulation.
Just quiet,
What
please.
is a feasibility study cost to taxpayers to look into the process of deregionalization? And if it does cost money, will the taxpayers get to vote on if we want to spend the money on a feasibility study in the first place? I'm a parent of 2 young children in the district. I have no desire whatsoever to see us deregionalize. And I would like us to start having a say earlier in the process before the town moves forward with the energy and with the resources to go through a process of deregionalization. If the taxpayers don't even want us to pursue that avenue, I think it's imperative that taxpayers get to vote on that process far sooner than later. I would hate for your resources and your time to be wasted on something that most of the voters do not want to see. So, sorry, the original question was,
Yeah.
how much money does feasibility cost? And at what point can we start getting more input from the community about if we even want you to move forward with that process?
Okay, so let me say this about that, right? If we were to move this forward, and tonight's discussion is the first one that we're having in open session, right? a budget would get developed for how much it's going to cost for the feasibility study. And we would develop that budget through subject matter experts who have got more specificity with this and more experience with it than we do. It would then have to go to an RFP. So we would have to, the town would have to issue, a request for proposal. We would take in proposals, and at that point, we would have numbers that are a lot more solid, and we can kind of make those decisions at that point in time. And the RFP process for a consultant is not even in the discussion at this point. Tonight's meeting is simply an opening meeting to have a chat about it, and there are a lot of steps in the process, and it's all our intentions, all of us that are here tonight, to communicate as effectively and as efficiently as we can so that everyone has the information accurately and timely. And that is the way this board has operated. And so hopefully I'm answering your question. We're not going to make this decision in a vacuum or in the dark. You will know what's going on along the way. We just did a mailing that that every resident in the town got, that publication. The select board paid to send that mailing to your homes because we've got so many people calling us saying what's going on and what's going on. We chipped in $350 each to send that mailing to everyone's home. That's how passionate the three of us are about having effective communication. And so hopefully I'm answering your question about there's in corporate world, you hear some people talking about communication. We get it.
For more context, so we did a business economic growth review a few years back, and we actually voted at town meeting to follow up and do a study, and studied online, and it basically said there's very little opportunity for business growth in Dunstable. For those that are really pushing for business growth, I strongly encourage you to read that study. So we have 15,000 cars a year that come through town, 15,000 cars a day. None of them want to stop. And they're going to go to national for the stuff that's tax-free. Or they're going to go to Groton. Well, you'd be surprised. I'm not an expert in study, but it took a while to get to that study, that level. So it takes quite a few levels to get to that step in terms of getting a study done.
To go back to your question about the cost, the study that we did in 2016 about bringing all guns was approximately $5,000 to do that study.
And now, is that something that we get to vote on if we even want you to pursue that kind of study? I just think it's.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know that.
Just doing the study doesn't mean you follow the recommendation necessarily. You do the study so that we can continue the conversation to see if it's even reasonable. Obviously, we did this study and it gave us an outline of things that we can do, and we have done none of them except bring the conversation up again. That's it. So the study we made, we didn't execute most of it because it didn't make sense, but that does not mean it was a waste of money. It helped us make decisions.
Okay, on and to the left there, yes.
Valerie Callahan, High Street. What will be the impacts of the opening of the new Florence Roach when they take all the children back from Groton over to the new school? And have you looked into possibly expanding the grades at Swallow Union to go up to perhaps 6th grade to make up for the empty space, or what will the impact be financially for them?
Well, still the district, so it's just the numbers don't really change.
That's probably a question for
Dr. Laura, do you want to?
There's going to be one thing that will change. So the capital expenses for each building are based on the 5-year rolling average of the students in that building. So right now, about 125 students are from Groton, and the other 200, and I'm within a couple here, are from Dunstable. And so that's how the capital expenses, any improvements, any capital expenses to that building are apportioned in that manner. If when those 125 students, odd students go back to Florence Roach, the new Florence Roach, over a 5-year period, that number will decline. So this year there's 125 students. Next year it will be whatever it is, divided by 4, then divided by 3, divided by 2, divided by 1. So over a 5-year period, the capital expenses for that building will return to the town of Dunstable, it really doesn't make any difference whether there's 200 kids in there or there's 250 kids or 275 kids. It will, that will, over a 5-year period, that will, the cost of that will return back to the town.
Does that answer your question? Back left-hand corner.
If the Orange Grove, the new school, accommodates students from basketball.
It does not.
Could not.
No, it does not.
And the new school couldn't accommodate all the students from basketball.
Hold on a second. I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Close the elementary, there's no way we could close the elementary school here and move the elementary students to run.
So there was a decision made back then that, and I don't remember how we made that decision. The decision back then was to opt out of the Florence Roach School so that we would not lose the school in the center of town. And that,
Now we need to cut our costs, so.
yeah, but the cost of education of a kid is still, it doesn't move around by moving the kids from one building to another. It's still a real number.
And there's not space in the new school for Dunstable students, correct? Or
This time, no.
at this-
Okay, Erica?
So, I'm not an expert on the bylaws, but I know a lot of people want those. I personally would here because it's quiet and it's safe, and you bring more business in town and more people shopping, you bring more risk. So my question is, again, not an expert on the bylaws, so in bylaws, is there a way, if you're going to do growth, to do it very controlled, where you have a lot of control over what businesses are moving into the town?
I would check with the planning board and you'll see their guidelines and how strict they are, and it's sort of by design in terms of what predecessors to my time and most of our time.
Even if it was, we talked about Marshall County, we already went through the marijuana bylaws, since both these were pretty well similarly constructed. And that would take, it would have to be revoted again to amend the bylaw, and then the bylaw would have to be voted in to make that change. You'd be talking a year to 2 years away from today to be, or more, to be able to have something along those lines, and then differing, depends on which business you want to move in, but just based on, that's the reason why the study came back with, that it's not the best spot to have economic developments, to have, commercial areas, is that, we're kind of already on the way. People have left Groton, people have left Peckrell, where that last mile before you hit 113, people aren't looking to really stop here is kind of what we got back from.
And we do have a master plan that it is, I was on that committee years ago, and it's a very thorough process, and there was a significant amount of community involvement with preparing that master plan. And again, that's online, anybody can take a look at it. And people love the way this town is. The overwhelming desire was not to make this a strip mall along Route 113. The open space that we have has value. You can't always put a price tag on it, but it has value, and that is why so many of the people want to move here. The study that Karen mentioned, the study that was prepared to discuss businesses coming in, it pretty clearly said there is nothing that you could build in Dunstable business-wise that you cannot get somewhere else within 10 minutes. So it's not the answer. It is not the answer. Never mind, there are many businesses already in this town, but they're all taxed at the same rate. So we're not, the revenue, if you say Dunstable doesn't have business is not true. We have a lot of business. They're just small. He's chair, he answers your questions. So.
Just hang on, I will get to everybody. Ma'am, right there, green sweater.
I'm Christina Andrioli, I live on Beach Road in Dunstable. I just have a question about bringing deregionalization to the table, and I also want to also say thank you for doing this. This is great to be here and be able to talk about this. Bringing that as an option, is the assumption that it's going to cost less to educate our children somewhere else?
We don't know.
We don't know that. We don't know.
So, okay, but so do you think that it's possible that GD school district is costing more than, you think that it's proportionally higher than it would be somewhere else? Or you're saying you don't?
We don't know.
It seems like an odd nothing to put on the table if you don't have.
That's the thing, the discussion is to even think about it. We're not voting on whether to do
No, I
this or
understand
not.
that, I'm just saying.
So
if you put
it's
it on
simply
the
our
table-
due diligence to, if we even decide this, what we want to look into it. We're not even taking a vote on that.
Yeah,
But, right,
I
so
was
the
just
question
trying to
would be,
I'm just trying to understand if the overall feeling is that our current school district is more costly than other town school districts. I mean,
well, they compare it to a whole group of other, their market basket, variety of schools, and in most cases, it falls sort of in the middle of a lot of things.
Right.
And
I-
but nonetheless, even though they're falling within that middle, we're finding that we are still in significant deficit to be able to afford that.
I understand.
So in order for us to make decisions going forward, we were contemplating, what would it cost if we were to tuition out grades 9 through 12? We have no idea.
Because I don't understand what is tuition out.
So I guess school choice.
School choice.
School choice, okay.
Yeah.
the
So to
money
pay for
that's-
them to go to different
So
schools,
you would then pay for my child to go to preschool.
well, ultimately, you would be, yes, the town.
Right, sure.
So, just two more things.
Go ahead.
One of them is there any consideration if we're changing, if we say this is a road we want to look at, you understand where the Groton Dunstable School District falls in performance academically. I assume the three of you understand that. And the areas that we can draw from are not even close.
Understood.
And so this is not an apples to apples comparison. I would expect that if my child had to go to North Middlesex or Tingsboro, that my taxes would be reduced significantly. However, based on all the other financial problems we have, it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. So I think we have a serious revenue problem. And I don't think we're any different than any other community, quite frankly. And I don't think we're any different than any other family, quite frankly, because I can tell you that I've had countless discussions with my spouse recently about how the heck we're gonna continue to survive, because our revenue is not enough, even now. So I understand, we have a huge problem on our hands. I think we have to work with the school committee. I definitely think we have to try to get the numbers down. I don't think that they're padding stuff. I really don't, but I understand, like, our electric bill was $500 a few months ago. Like, that's insanity, right? So things are crazy right now. I'm just saying, like, please don't look at this and go, that school would be sufficient because your child would, they would go to 6th grade. The school district is phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
That's the only reason most of us move here.
I pulled my kids out of private school, I put them in the public school district. Okay, I was paying taxes, I was paying tuition for a private school, I pulled them out when I put them here. And the school across the street there is a gem. And those people they work with very little, okay? That is a gem. And to your point in the back, nobody wants to go to Florida Church, okay? Because it's not this. It's not this. I'm sorry. But number two, because I don't know how to get the revenue, because I'm hurting just like everybody else here, okay? I understand that our Chapter 70 funding, which is funding from the state for public schools, has significantly been reduced over the course of the last 10 years. School committee, is that correct?
Being held flat right now. yes.
Being held flat, but it's not, so being held flat meaning like we do have a deficit in what we used to get and what we get now.
Expenses go up year over year.
And our money from the state is not going up proportionately. I also believe that our school committee has been in touch with Beacon Hill on this issue. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anything else that we can do as a town? We are a rural farming community. Come on, we need funding from the state. Where is it?
Just so you know, our state rep and our senator are in this room tonight.
I know our state representative.
Yeah.
I don't know what our senator is.
Right behind you.
Sorry to call you guys.
Hold on a second here. Come on. Go
I'm
ahead.
just saying, like, please, other towns are getting a ton of money, and we don't check certain boxes, and we're not getting it.
senator, to the state auditor, to our lieutenant governor. We have had private individual meetings with all of these people, and Dr. Chesson was there. And this has been, vehemently expressed to these state officials. So we are well aware of that, and we don't disagree with really anything that you've said.
Thank you.
We are, hold on a second, we are pursuing every available option. The lieutenant governor sat in this room 3 weeks ago, and she heard it. But there's no immediate fix to that. That sort of a funding mechanism, is complicated, and, but they have heard it. Diana DiZoglio in Groton, a month and a half ago, state auditor, with unfunded mandates from DESE, which is Department of Education, right? We get all that, but that doesn't help us with fiscal next year, right? And we are working this thing constantly. There's no such thing as going home from this at the end of the day. The three of us are fielding this stuff every day of the week, 7 days a week. It's going on in real life, and we are pursuing it. But concurrent or in parallel with that comes the exercise of de-regionalizing as part of the solution to the problem. We don't know if it's the right solution, but in parallel with everything else we're doing, we want to explore it so that we understand it. So, Margaret, do you have any? I don't have to bring up SWAT. Is there anything you want to add to that discussion regarding the state?
Well, I certainly appreciate the conversations, and I have worked with the delegation through your phone, and we all been myself, Dan, Tina. I mean, it's a top priority for all of us, besides, North Middlesex, Pepper, Lashtree, and Franklin, they're having the exact same discussions, and it's the exact same kind of dire choices. Oh, wow, one police officer at night, that is so not ideal. Close your library, and who wants to move to a community that doesn't have a library, but the reality is, it comes out of people's pockets, and every one of these towns, it's like a 96%, 97% residential tax situation. So you have 3 to 4%, I think Lunenburg has a 6%. It's all on the backs of taxpayers, and education is so important. So are the schools, so are the libraries, so, are the police and the fire. All I can say is, Senator Kennedy and I, we talked to the chairs of Ways and Means. We used words like dire and crisis, catastrophe. We brought Diana DiZoglio out here to talk to the different towns about these unfunded mandates. They're seeing what they can do, but, as you pointed out, Mr. Chair, like, for next year's budget, the state budget won't be done until July or maybe August, like it was this year. You're not gonna see that money next year. Are there more creative things that we can look at? Could we work to get, say, Dunstable more funding for capital needs that will be on your budget? So then that frees it up to move on to the school side. I mean, that option sounds good. And certainly Senator Kennedy might have other ideas, but we work on that tirelessly.
Joni Simmons?
Yeah, we heard of Groton Selectmen with all their business over there, with everything they have going on in that town, they are still behind the eight ball. Okay, they still don't, they're even selling marijuana, they're still behind the eight ball. Unless you want to put an Amazon warehouse in the middle of Tully's cornfield, no business that we are going to be able to establish here is going to, bring in the funding that we need, okay? We need, number one, we need to get that budget further down. And number two, we need everybody to get to the polls
to approve an override. I know it's gonna hurt, but, that's the only way we can do it short term.
I just have a comment on the business discussion. So when that, and a question, when that plan was developed or when it was looked into, it's, and the discussion and the examples you're giving, it seems as though it was product-based businesses that we were considering or looking at or evaluating. I would agree that those people can go and buy a TV in Nashville, right? Like they're not stopping here in Dunstable. I think there's product-based businesses and there's experience-based businesses. And we sell an experience, we have an experience here to offer businesses to come in that takes advantage of our natural resources, not building, in a liquor store or, a strip mall. Looking at, I don't know, partnering with, like, say, for instance, a college or a university that has an agriculture program, right? And they need land, they need buildings constructed as a part of their academic, educational, process with land that students can farm and can learn about sustainability in agriculture. I think about businesses like, even like Jibbitz, it's up on a hill, right? They do these phenomenal farm-to-table dinners regularly. They take advantage of the land. I think about businesses that have cross-country skiing, you buy tickets for that. Somebody mentioned a bike park, I don't know a lot about that, but again, it takes advantage of our natural resources. It's not construction-based, right? It's experience-based businesses. So I just like to kind of throw that out there. If it has been discussed or thought of, or I know it's not gonna solve the immediate problem, but down the road, it could be a source of revenue.
So like agro-tourism or eco-tourism.
Yeah, that's what we have to solve here. We do come here for this experience, right? Of being in the land and embracing the land. So let others come here and enjoy it. Some other town in Vermont that traditionally got their revenue from skiing, they started with a festival in the summer. You have to market these things, right? People don't just come, you have to market them. But together, the town with the select board, started putting together, like another town in Vermont, just like a hot air balloon festival, right? Like that draws all sorts of people. It's a one weekend thing, everybody comes, it raises a lot of revenue.
So, if I can answer this.
Yeah.
quickly, without being correctly. For a lot of these businesses, which I think are fantastic, I love the concept of ecotourism, we do talk about that all the time. But in order for the town to actually receive any revenue from that, we either need to tax them at a different rate than you do residents, or you tax them for a personal property. And something like that isn't going to have a significant amount of personal property. Furthermore, as far as splitting the tax rate and taxing businesses at a higher rate, because the businesses we have in town are so small, we're not gonna do a split rate for the Farmhouse Cafe and charge them double. It wouldn't be fair to those businesses, or Rose of Sharon. So increasing the businesses like that, the smaller things, which certainly add to the culture of the town, I think are great, are not gonna be revenue makers for the town budget.
So selling tickets on land that Dunstable owns, right, where we're getting that revenue, like we have all this conservation land, I'm talking about a festival now, right, or cross-country skiing, or having a university lease with land that we own, right, so we own it, they use it, they pay water.
But bringing a business in will be more than what we have now. We have no businesses in here now to bring in revenue. So,
But again,
it would be more than zero.
Unless we're changing the tax rate on that business, it's not gonna bring revenue into our budget.
Different extreme.
But then why not change it to business? If we need to raise revenue, why not consider changing the tax rates of businesses and try to attract more businesses?
If you do like a small business tax rate and then like a corporation tax rate? Because, can I speak for a second?
Yes, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So, I'm Derek, and I've been at since 1996.
raised my 4 boys. Glad I only had one left, he's freshman, so okay. You spoke about the master plan, and I love the fact, the reason I moved here is because I love the rural town, I love coming home to the cows and everything, and I love all that, but it's just that, in that time, that work, that we obviously can see that it's not working anymore. And things need to move a little bit forward. I'm not saying I want to strip mall down 113, but is there like a back parcel of land or something that could offer to like a Raytheon or something like that, to like bring in some revenue in that way? Anything like that. I mean, that wouldn't be seen on somebody's backside, that maybe somebody's looking for a plot of land or something, to put in some kind of a.
Well, one of the business-owned areas, I mean, they're privately owned properties, the business 3 areas.
Well, we own a lot, the town owns a lot of land also.
We do, and the towns have voted to purchase those properties to keep them as open space. So those are protected as open space by the decision of townspeople. Because anytime a purchase of land like that occurred, it has to go to a town meeting. And people voted to protect those pieces of land.
We weren't in the situation we're in now, though. If you close the schools.
All right, hold on a second, one time.
Pack the bags and leave.
You're not closing the schools.
We're not closing the school.
Well, I'm not saying close the school, but I'm saying, just say it for the next 8 years.
All right.
Things are gonna change.
We're not closing the schools.
I know.
You know what it
Yeah.
is? There's two groups of people. By the way, my name's Kate, some of you know me, I've been here 25 years. When I moved in, I was 35, and now I'm not. I came to one of the first town meetings that within a month of moving here, I made a suggestion to a select woman who basically made me feel awful, because I said, why don't you do revenue? And I was told it's a quaint time. I walk these woods 5 times a week, with or without my dog. I've worked for the school district, and there is incredible teachers in the school district, incredible. They live here. My mother and I were school nurses here. Our kids go in here while we worked here. No better situation that you can have. With all that said, I love this time I moved in. I know that I'm still a blower, but there's a lot of us blowers. And we see things through a different set of glasses from the town we all came from. Sometimes I wish I was still there, but they don't have the land you have here. But I also saw towns do incredible things with their space. Just the Groton Music Center alone was brilliant. Buying a country club, golf course, brilliant. And I'm not saying just to poke at Groton. You could look at Hollis, and they had, for those of us that are horse people, which I was, I know your family is, brilliant. A town place for people to, you want to add to what this town already does mean, not take away, close the library, close things. We have so little to offer. But one of the biggest things we have to offer is the school district. And I'm pretty sure, raise your hand if you moved here to the school district. Raise your hand if you're second generation or more in Dunstable. So you just look out lucky, you've been here. But another thing I want to say is, I have to be honest, I also know people who have been here for generations. And I know some people are not paying the right amount of taxes. We have to dig deep into what this town is already doing and expose, not expose the person, but expose the reality of what's going on with our tax base, who's paying taxes and how it's being done, whether they're business or not, whether they, I'm not gonna say, because I don't have it, yeah. You have to look at what we're already doing, because that's the quickest resolution we can have, is to fix a problem we already have. I will volunteer. I've been an avid volunteer since I moved in here. Most of you who even know me probably know me from volunteering, and my husband, and my kids. It's just one, but you know what makes me sad is 4 children, 4 very successful children. They don't want to live here, and that makes me so sad. They're like, why do you want to live in Dunstable? They've already gone from California to Tucson to Florida to Maine, and they're like, And it breaks my heart. So
Someday they'll come to the future.
No, John, we don't got it, we don't completely got it all, we got some things, like I said, I spend my time out back, I use every little piece of this town. And as a grandmother, I'm at the library on Thursdays with my grandson. You can't look at someone who gets the school district, who gets the open space, who gets the high taxes. I love my home. It's $1 million home, but I will be moving out in order to afford something as I age. And that's why I supported the Dumont property. But, and other people who have lived in Dunstable their whole lives have had to move because they can't. We don't have certain things in town, not necessarily liquor store, fine. I don't have a problem, I'm a nurse, so I don't have a problem with cannabis, whether it's CBD or THC, I don't have a problem with it. But at the same time, and you have to completely educate yourself to understand, we've been using CBD in medicine for years, and we have so much open space to grow it. But we have open space for a golf course, we have open space, we could be like Hamilton and have myopia. And that's what I said when it was shot down. I offered, 25 years ago, I stood up and talked about cell towers. Don't we all wish the town owned some of those cell towers now?
We've tried to provide RFPs, and there were no takers.
Too late to the party, too late to the party. You can't be late to the party anymore. And we have to work together. And I am extremely bipartisan individual. I get it, you've been here for generations, and I get it if you're looking to move into this town. But everyone's gotta walk away. No one person should walk away extremely happy, something's wrong. Everyone's gotta walk away, compromise. Compromise that they're getting a piece of why they came here, because we all equally, no matter if we pay a little more than someone else's house or a little less, we all came here, we all had a reason for coming here, and it has to be appreciated. Or we are gonna move out. Our group of 8 old women, they're all moving out, and they were people who worked here in the town hall, and they were people who were teachers. They're like, no, why would I stay? I'm like, why wouldn't you? And now, I'll consider it.
Which is why we are so concerned, because we know at this point, to get us through this issue, the answer at this point is an override, which keeps everybody going and the school system running and pays the bills, but it puts a lot of people in jeopardy as well.
If you have an
really
override,
stressful.
if it went through, but today, even today, get the paper out, we can start signing up for communities who's gonna explore what. But we have to take it serious. At 60 years old, I can't be shut down like when I was 35, when I was told that I was a dreamer and everything else, and that I didn't know what I was talking about. And I haven't come to a town meeting because of that. I involved myself with the schools and everything else. I didn't do it in the town, because I felt like it crushed me moving to this town and being told that what I had to say wasn't worthwhile. But if we could start exploring it now, if we can go back and look who's paying what for taxes, you could find, you don't want to be penny wise, pound foolish. You want to get pieces by pieces by pieces, a little bit of money here, a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. We can do this, but we all have to not just show up and read it. We all have to say, all right, what's my little part? If you only have a little bit of time, do a little part. I believe in volunteerism. It actually makes you live longer, by the way, if you volunteer.
Okay, Erica.
So again, I didn't come here for the schools, I don't have children. I grew up here, didn't go to Brockton School, but I did grow up here. And I get it, children to schools are priority. But for people like me, for seniors, you're asking, I already give a lot of the school system that I'll never use, that I never use.
But it keeps your house worthwhile.
But I'm gonna retire here, so really that's not that to me. And if you, I just bought my house, my new house here. My taxes have already gone up almost $1,000 a year for a house I just bought.
But you're not looking at my resolution is to do other things and do that.
Well, just let me finish out. Now, I'm not a contributor to the school system that I'm not taking away from. If you're pushing people like me out because you want to give even more to the schools that I can't afford, if my taxes go up another $1,000, I will be crushed. I may be able to handle it, but I will be crushed. If you're pushing people like me, a single person on one household, or a senior person on a fixed income out of the town, they're help subsidizing that education system. So if you're gonna push us out by asking for even more,
that we can't afford, then that's gonna even make the problem even worse.
I'm not asking for more, I'm asking if possibly in the short term, if we need to, I don't know. I would like to start tomorrow, and I'm willing to help. First of all, look at the current people paying taxes and who's paying their fair share and who's doing what. So that right there is one major piece. Number two, now, before we need to ask more than a one time, let's in the next 3 years, or 1 year, or 2 years, there has to be something with the correct brainstorming and the correct homework to put something in our beautiful town, as you called it, ecotourism. You know, I was also, one of the things I was shut down about, that said, well, who do you want, the riffraff coming through here? I don't know, I got a golf course or myopia, like in Hamilton, with people playing polo. We got the land, and that brings in a lot, and a lot of wealthy people. So, we're not bringing riffraff in. I mean, I'm still okay with cannabis, I'm still okay with a store, but everything has to be done right, and Dunstable does drag their feet, but at the same time, they will do it right. I believe if the compromise happens, it will be done, and it will be done right. And that's what Dunstable has the ability to do.
Okay, I do want to move along a little bit. And there are a bunch of other people that have got questions. Joan?
I hear you wanting to, look at who's not paying their fair share, okay? And, I'm sorry to have to bring this up, but it costs $18,000, I believe, what was it, $18,667 to educate one child in our school system. Excuse me? I can't.
18 was for 2020.
It's 20,
Correct.
yeah.
Oh, it's 22,000 now?
No, I said it was 18,000 in 2022. That's
Oh, well, so I went to the assessor's office yesterday. And from the information they gave me, the average tax bill in Dunstable is $9,000. Okay? So $9,000 isn't even paying for half. You have one child in the school district, doesn't even pay for half of their education. Okay, so, I'm not opposed to everybody paying their fair share. But, that needs to be said. We started several years ago to try and establish a town center district to promote business in the center of town. And it got voted down 2 or 3 times before we finally got it passed. Okay, and I don't know whether people back then just didn't care about business, or whether they just weren't showing up to vote. But we finally got it passed, and we're in the process of trying to get, the town center, right, we're not gonna put a CVS in, or, whatever. We want some nice little businesses, like the bookstore, like the cafe. We have, we'll see how town meeting likes this, on the town warrant, there is language to change the bylaw, the town center district bylaw, to allow one liquor store in the center of town. Okay, so.
Specialty.
It's a wine shop.
They get full liquor license, okay? They get full liquor license. And,
Hang on here, all right?
their idea is to be a very specialized type of place. Sounds lovely, and, but still, you know, still a liquor store in the center of town, so we'll see how it goes over. But, you know, slowly but surely, we're trying to, you know, make things happen. But, yeah, you're not gonna, you know, you're not gonna get, any big business coming here and, then you would bring forth.
Tiffany?
Hi, Tiffany on Highland Street. So, speaking to the school budget and the proposed assessment for next year, I have a question. When I was looking at it, I was really dismayed to hear about this fully funding kindergarten, fully removing your dependence on, excess deficiency. But I also have a question about the $700,000 increase in staff spending for the Swallow Union. Because for Florence Road, when all the discussions began about the flow road being built, there was discussions about what's gonna happen to the teachers, because you're losing 120, 30, 40 students to Groton. And I understand that it's not the entire fourth grade, it's the entire third grade, that it's gonna be scattered amongst those 5 groups. But what's the rationale for saying that we still need all the staff at Swallow Union, which I love? Both my children went there, I went there. But how can you justify adding $700,000 to the budget and not try to look at staffing solutions?
Dr. Laura?
Sure. So actually, there was a number of staff members that will be moving from Swallow Union to, the new Florence Roach. As many things, we were asked to develop this budget in July, when we normally develop our budget in December, so we were 6 months ahead of schedule. At that point, we do not know definitively what additional services will be needed. So for example, there's a counselor at Swallow Union. We will need an additional counselor services at Florence Roach. We can't tell students that they can only have a social emotional meeting on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because on Monday and Friday, their counselor is at Florence Roach. So we will have to continue with the same level of services at Swallow Union for those students, but we're going to have 645 students over at the new Florence Roach, and right now there's about 530. So there will be additional counselor services. So that's part of that $700,000. We also need an additional maintenance person, because we're adding so many hundreds of thousands of square feet. So whether that 700,000 is a number that's constantly being refined, and we're looking at very closely, it's my expectation that it will decrease. At this point, I'm not comfortable saying how much, because we are still working with both Jason and Mark Haddad, and we're still looking at the enrollment. We also have to look at the special education needs that are available for that school, because we may have to have a special education, we may have to have duplication of services. So as we look through those things, we're trying to be as efficient as possible, but we also want to make sure that our students get the services that they need. And I don't want Swallow Union students to lose any services because the person is going back and forth between the schools.
Can I just add something to you? But to also address what you were saying to me, I mean, each grade level likely will be losing, like one instructor will move over per grade level. I mean, I don't know if it'll be exactly that, but there is the expectation that there is going to be a shift in personnel from one building to the other.
One class from each grade will be shifting to Florence Roach, and one teacher from each grade, and then some additional special education staff, which we're still looking at the IEPs of those students that are moving to church what kind of staff.
Okay, moving along. Anyone else? Yes.
We actually have a lot of businesses in this. Not all of them have storefronts. Whether it's a farm, whether it's in your driveway, or whether it's in your house. We do have a lot of businesses. We were talking about, ways for everybody to contribute to this. We were talking about fees. We talked about, fees. Okay, fees in front. Why doesn't everybody get assessed $1,000? You have a home-based business. Yeah, you've got earned income, your farm, your whatever. Why aren't you assessed the same way? You would be, if you need to get a license for something. You have a lot of businesses.
There is. Well, there are fees for home businesses.
So maybe that's something that you put on the list.
Right, first we reevaluate.
To say, if we increase this by this percentage, how much, it's not gonna be everything. But if we continue to chip away at it, and the schools in good faith, which I think most people in the room are not gonna try to tell, or would have enough respect, not to tell the trained educators how to educate our kids. We are a public school system. There's a responsibility that goes with the public school system to educate every student for the needs of the community. And there's no, I don't think the majority of people, I think the majority of people in this room will agree. Our school district has a long tradition of doing that exceptionally well, which is why many of us moved here and have decided to stay here. But living in a community like this has a cost. Going one place for dinner, going somewhere else for dinner, the cost is different. If we like this quiet community, if we like the quaintness, it has a cost. But if we can reasonably say, if you have a business in this community and you're earning revenue, perhaps you need to pay a little bit more money, perhaps we have to pay a little bit more and do our fair share because we have a revenue stream and we have an ability to make more money. There's other things we could do. Perhaps we could put solar panels on the tops of the schools and they could be sustainably self-sufficient for energy. Maybe there's grant money in the state that will help us do that.
We've been looking into that.
Excellent. If kindergarten is full-time kindergarten as a standard, shame on us for not giving it to every child. But perhaps there's state money that will help a rural community get that going, and then eventually we can do that on our own. Who knows? But we cannot let our responsibility to our most important resource, which is our children, go. Our kids want to come back to this community, but they cannot afford it. We have a housing complex coming in. We have lots of other things happening. But the bottom line is it all has a cost. So if the people that are here representing the schools, representing the Board of Selectmen, tell us how, rather than I keep sitting here telling you what to do and what to look at, how do we help for the people who are really interested in helping this process come to something that in the short term we can bear without missing a beat, and in the long term we can grow options and other things we can do. How do we help with that?
I think show up and vote. I mean, simplistically,
So
like,
I think you're preaching to the choir here, so,
yeah.
so here's the thing.
One thing, I worked really hard last year, and I took this on myself as we go to use chair of the board, but I worked feverishly to make sure we had 2 police officers on at night, and we had an extra per diem person in the fire station, and an extra highway worker in a couple of things. And it failed. We had less than 500 people vote.
So then I'm
So
obviously.
20% of this room may or may not have voted, because there's about 100 people here.
Okay,
So-
how about information, because when people know it's, I know.
I put a lot of information out.
How about we take the responsibility of getting the information and sharing it? Because when people know the important stuff is, we trust you to do what you do. We elect you and we trust you, but when it's a big thing and you need us, we show up. So, we share this at book club, we share this at the bus stop, we share this at the supermarket, we share this wherever. And we get people so that they know the vote is happening. Like, how do we do that? Like, how can we get information? I know you're giving us information, but I guess we all just need to we need to be informed and we need to share so people know. I mean, special town elections sometimes happen in the summer, you know, and the last override failed by 6 votes. Granted, it's 6 votes, but only 500 people showed up. But did people know how important that meeting was? You did your best, but did we do our best? And telling our neighbors, right? A question for us.
We're gonna answer that in a minute. I don't wanna leave it, but I do wanna ask chair of the advisory board.
So I just had, just as talking about the information being out there, that's publicized, it goes onto the website, it goes onto every form of social media we have possible. Last week, the advisory board read the warrant that everyone's supposed to vote for at the special town meeting. I can tell you, 2 people showed up aside from our board. So we put the information out there, we asked for people to show up, we have a public hearing. It's announced even earlier than a regular meeting, 2 people showed up. So I'd be surprised how many people would actually know about PFAS if it wasn't for the select board going and coming out of their own pocket to be able to publicize something out to the community. So the information is there if you want to see it. Everyone wanted to see, because they were shocked and awed that we might be investigating something outside of the norm because of the fact that we do not have money for it. I'll tell you right now, we don't have it. I'm responsible for putting forth the budget from my side, that it goes to the town administrator. I can tell you right now, the money's not there. We're not gonna find it. I heard this all last year. People thought we were gonna find the money. People didn't vote for the override because they thought the schools were too expensive, that they wouldn't pay for the police officer. This is legitimate things that have been sent back to me and information that I requested from the town people like this. I've asked, why didn't you vote for it? Why did we not want to have 2 police officers on at night? Why did we not want to have, and it still shocks me, and probably would still shock some people here, we do not have 2 firefighters on during the day. If you go and something happens at your house in the middle of the day, there aren't 2 people standing there waiting to come run to your rescue. Now, granted, the chief is here, and I know he can speak to that, and we have the chief of police and the chief of fire here, because they were cut back last year. We cut back from their services because of the fact that we couldn't find the money, it wasn't buried somewhere else. We're not talking about, just a small bucket of money. We're not talking about, what I would consider small would be 300,000 now. That's not even close. We are 4 times that to be able to cover this year's override. If you look at the school's budget proceeding forward, it is $1 million increase every single year for the next 5 years. So we're not talking about a $1,000 increase one time and everything's fine. You're talking about a $5,000 increase over the next 5 years, $1,000 each year, probably, it's probably amortized, it's probably gonna get to be $1,000, $1,100, $1,200, $1,300. So we're gonna be talking about $5,000 plus per household. So you take that house, the average that we talked about was $9,000, they're gonna go up to $15,000. Tell me how that is sustainable, and it's incumbent upon us to be able to put the information out there, to be able to explain that this is not a sustainable practice for us to try to go back. Because as you saw, as Jason presented, if we cut back, if we miss one of these overrides, you don't have to worry about a library, there isn't one. You don't have to worry about calling the police, because they're probably gonna be dispatched from somebody else. You don't have to worry about your house on fire, because there's probably nobody there. And you have to look at these people, and what are we gonna attract as far as talented individuals to be able to try to figure this thing out afterwards? Who are we gonna have as a town administrator? Jason's amazing. I love working with him, the changes he's made in a year, it's been phenomenal for our town. But do you think he's gonna sit around and wait if we miss one of these and we try to scratch together his budget for one more year? It's probably never gonna happen. So I would say, a request, potentially, that we look at, because we don't have these size meetings on a regular basis. Nobody shows up. I joke around on a regular basis that 9 volunteers run this town, because that's all that shows up. And again, I'm being honest with you. We put the information out there, we asked the joke, as Karen just mentioned, 300 people voted. And you lost a police officer, you lost fire coverage, you lost the highway department. I know our roads are like glass, they're perfectly flat to drive on, right? So we weren't able to bring on another highway department employee. So we're losing these things because of increasing costs. So from the people that are here, are you okay with continuing to pay that amount of money? Are you okay with increasing your taxes $5,000 over the next 5 years? Seriously, show of hands, is anyone willing to do that?
For children, yeah. That's the best one.
But are you gonna show up and vote?
We can't have this wonderful school system if you're not willing to pay for it. So all of you, every one of you out there, raise your hand when the question was asked earlier. Do you love the school? Do you want your children to go there? And he asked this question about paying for it. A third of you raised your hands. That's our problem. That is our problem, right there.
Hold on a second, one at a time. I'm sorry, I want to take this in order because some people have been waiting. Yeah, right there and up against the wall. I'm sorry.
I appreciate everything tonight, everyone, thank you. But with that said, I've sat in many of these meetings when one person has showed up as well, and it's been completely shut down by the selectmen.
This board here has shut you down.
Over the past 6 years, when I've gone to meetings and said, how are we going to increase and fix our revenue issue, financial issue, whichever word we want to use, it has not, in my opinion, been anything other than a discussion. We are very good at discussion. We are very good at studies. We are not very good at action.
And what action? I'm just curious, what action?
The combination of everyone coming together. When I first walked into this town, it was Selectmen versus School Committee. You guys are actually coming together now. That's great. That's good for all of us. Conservation versus business. Doesn't need to be a verse. We all need to work together. It's not one thing is the solution. Is it a few small, quaint businesses that come in that meet our culture? Awesome. Do we have a festival that comes in? Maybe our summer concerts, we have a beer truck and overhead. Maybe we charge $1. It's not going to make this huge impact right away, but we all have to come together in some manner. It has to be a little bit from every single piece. Even tonight, Leah, with all respect, some of the things we brought up, we very quickly shut down, in my opinion. Nope, can't happen, can't happen.
Well, but
We have
there's
to work
history
together.
behind some of these things, and I apologize if you feel I was shutting you down. But it's not as if there are many of these things we have thought about, and you look and you investigate into them, and there are reasons why some of these aren't gonna work.
100%, but we're at the point where we're at now, we need action, it can't continue. So when we all voted to protect certain land, of course, but the variables has changed now. We're at the point where we're putting on the table a discussion about changing our district, that is huge. That will change everything. Which is, if it's what we have to do, the town will come together and we will vote. But it can't just be the schools have to fix it, they're too expensive. Guess what, schools don't have control over it either, it's the state, right? Okay, so they're stuck. We're stuck in our town as well because we need to figure out how we're gonna make some changes in our town that still keeps our culture, as well as supports the other goals that we have, which is our schools. That's what I'm saying. We need to come together.
No, I completely agree.
So a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and maybe we'll move the needle a little bit. Because for 6 years I've been sitting here listening, we have a financial issue, and I haven't seen one change to actually help with that.
I would have to disagree with you there.
I'm happy to have that conversation.
Two of the things Jason mentioned earlier are combining services with another town. That's a major situation.
Right, which has recently happened.
It takes a while to get these things done.
I
It honestly
100%
does.
understand that, but Dunstable has
It
been
takes a
around
long
for
time.
350 years.
This isn't,
Okay? I respect you and what you do, but I'm also ready for us to start the action part. We've been doing a lot of talking.
But we do have to play nice in the sandbox.
All right, hang on, hold on a second, hold on a minute, I gotta take some of these in order. Jason, you'd asked for a couple minutes?
No, it's all right, keep going.
Okay.
I don't wanna, I mean, there's a lot of people.
Hang on.
I do wanna say something, but there's a lot of people who wanna talk.
Gentlemen, right in the back here, please.
Yes, my name's Joe, I'm also in King Road. I'm newer here, I would say the last 3 years. We moved here, I lived in Nashua, my wife's from Tingsboro. Recently had 2 kids, and we really moved here because obviously the town around me, it's like Little House on the Prairie. We got a great school district. I love the passion that I'm hearing here tonight. I really couldn't be more proud to be here. Mr. Advisory Board, I'm glad to have you on our team. You sound like you have it all together for us. I really appreciate your hard work, and you guys up there as well. So I totally understand the people that have been here for a long time. We have beautiful lands here. I know we have, it sounds like a lot of conservation land. People have touched upon this already. It has in the past, do we have a growth rate that we look to achieve to try to increase the population of the town? Is there a cap to that? I wouldn't want to have this place run over such like a Nashua, which used to be a farmland way back in the day. But my wife's family's from Drayton. That used to be a very farm town. We got Shaw's Farm, very probably in comparison to Tully, I suppose. They have a lot of farms there. I know they shrunk, which is probably gonna be a very, hot topic over there. They shrunk their land ordinances down, which, I know a lot of people there weren't happy about. But that did bring in more people that brought up, more community, into their area, more kids to the school district. Has that been talked about? Obviously, I know that may not be a positive thing for a lot of people, but, has that just been an avenue we've investigated?
Yeah, I mean, there are some private landowners that we have a town, funded mixed-use housing project coming behind the post office, which is a mandate by the Commonwealth in terms of finding affordable housing. There are a couple of private landowners that are beginning and contemplating looking at building housing, whether it be senior housing, beginners housing, whatever, however they're going to define it, that's up to them, because they're private landowners. And there may be opportunities for tax-based growth there, where with little impact on a school, a 55 plus or a 75 plus housing project with a few school-age children. However, the size and scope of said project is to be determined, and it's probably several years down the road.
Yeah, I know, Groton, Tingsboro, a lot of the other towns are doing those 55 plus communities. So that's.
And there are school-age children that come with it, like my parents had me and my brother's pretty late in life, so I don't know how old they are now, I can't think of the math off the top of my head, but there does come children in some financial responsibility, but not as much of a burden. And in those type of parcels and those type of planned communities, if you will, there is a good opportunity for potential tax-based growth. That's all I can really think of in terms of the value for those types of projects.
So to increase tax dollars into the community, how come it hasn't really went, not it's you guys per se, but maybe the teams beforehand, how come it hasn't been any further?
Yeah, we're not close to Boston. I mean, before COVID, remote work was kind of a foreign concept. My wife, in case, she would drive to Boston. I drove to Boston every day before COVID. And then COVID happened and remote, and only being a seaport 2 days a week has become a necessity. It's changed the landscape of how work functions. So folks who can stay at home 3 days a week in our awesome community and take the dog for a walk on the conservation trails at lunchtime, that's what the world's sort of evolved to. So I think now the need and the opportunity for private landowners to come up with, 100 housing units in tighter spaces with walking paths and ponds and beautiful dog land, whatever you want to call it, it's becoming more realistic and fewer land parcels are available in Burlington, Woburn, Billerica, it's sprawl. It's pushed out into communities like Dunstable, Pepperell, Tingsboro. Like look what Tingsboro did to their public golf course.
Yeah.
They're like $900,000 2-bedroom houses that Toll Bros. They're beautiful. Like they're awesome. But that used to be a golf course.
And similar to where someone said the golf course, Drake did that as well. Their golf course, full homes.
Yeah.
They got the nice community over there as well.
So it is happening. It's by definition, it's sprawl. And you see it in all sorts of small towns.
Every direction you go from Dunstan.
Yep.
Every direction.
Okay, moving along. Do you have anything else, sir?
No, that's the thing.
I'm sorry, Lacey, give me that back and, yes. Yeah,
Okay, I'm Karen Wilkins. I live on 4th Street. I've been here for 25 years. My husband's been here for 50. Basically, probably everybody in the room knows him. And I just want to piggyback off of what Beth and Jackie said. And I really feel like, just to kind of say like something that I know my husband has been saying for a long time, even as a small business owner in town, I definitely think that those permits, and he definitely thinks those permits and increasing those are important. And I understand that it's just a really, really small amount, but I feel like as a lot of people have said in this room, every little bit at this point is going to help. And I almost feel, and I don't think that you meant it this way, but it almost felt like when we started talking about businesses, it just felt like nobody's going to stop in town. But didn't we say the same thing about Dunkin' Donuts? When Dunkin' Donuts was coming in, a lot of people were like, I don't want Dunkin' Donuts, I don't want it in town. And it's a spot, right? Everybody goes there. My husband was there yesterday, so he knows half the town. But we met like everybody in town there yesterday, right? And it's like, it's a place to be, right? And I think it's kind of important to just say every little bit counts at this point. And yes, people aren't stopping in, not gonna stop in Dunstable for a TV. But they may stop here for, you know, like another like little shop, or maybe just to, you know, get some other small items, because you may not want to drive all the way to Dunstable, I mean, to Pepperell and Nashua, or one of those places, like I'm on the Kingsborough side of Dunstable, and I don't necessarily always want to drive over to, you know, Pepperell or anything like that. I'd love to be able to come to town to get those sort of things, and I feel like at this point, every little bit can help. And I think we just can't be too short-sighted on this, because we have to look further down the line so that 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever it is, we're not going through this all over again. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like we just need to start thinking about these things for the future, which will be really important. I mean, every little bit.
Okay, Lacey.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple of points. First, I wanted to speak to what Jake was saying a few minutes ago. So I understand why you're putting those numbers out there, I do. And I know it's sort of the financial reality that we're in. We all understand that there's a financial crisis that we're facing. But I really want to caution you about using those hard numbers and saying, well, are you willing to do, you know, this much this year and this much next year? You're saying it as though nothing will change, right? And I think the hope would be that we on the school. Can I finish?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So I think you need to acknowledge the fact that we're working hard to try to lower our number, okay? We acknowledge the position that we're in, and I care about this community too. I'm here for the schools, I care about the schools, but I love Dunstable too. And I am not looking to have this budget that is so unsustainable that it hurts our town, okay? And okay, I'm honestly just trying to save you. We all understand that there is this crisis that we need to address, but as many people have said, every little bit is going to help. What we can do on the school side, as well as any and all options on the town side, should be explored. And I want, me personally, just myself, I want to be a part of that. I want to be collaborative, and I want to work with everyone to make that happen. And I think there's a lot of people in this room that also really, now that they understand kind of the scope of what's going on, I think that you'll find that there are other people that may want to get involved to help too. I think we're all here for the same reason, that we care about our community. But all I'm saying is, I just want to caution you about using numbers as more than just their projections, right? And they are subject to change, like they could come down. And that's the goal that we all, I think, share. Okay, so that's my first thing. And then the second thing is, I'm sorry that I snapped. It's just, this is hard stuff, okay? But I am sorry for that. The other thing I wanted to say is, in terms of getting the word out, I think that we have a lot of people here now, and if people are really interested in helping out with that, there is always the option of forming advocacy groups to try to spread the word and to try to help spread that word. As elected officials, like, we can't necessarily advocate for things, or we can inform the public. But if there are people that genuinely want to get involved to advocate for things, then that is an option as well.
Definitely would agree. There's no question about it. If the override is the direction that we are forced to go, which is basically almost a certain at this point, that there's no question that the community and the people in this room, obviously expressing what they are right now, is something that is good and something we need to build on if we need to be able to do that, to provide that advocacy for the override, whichever we decide to do, 1, 3, 5, whatever it's to be. But in fairness, 4 or 5 years, I have sat here as an advisory board, either member or chair, and I have sat and looked at the school board and said the exact same thing year over year. This cannot continue. This cannot continue. We do not have the money. We cannot continue down this route. And it has not changed a thing. All that has changed is the E&D funding and the one-time use of ARPA funds. That is all that has changed. And now you're coming back and doing the exact same thing. The only way we could afford what the assessment we were being provided was to go into our savings account that was, just, as described earlier, our free cash, which I've put it out there as much as I can. It's not a sound business practice to continue forward. Sound practice, not business practice. not a sound practice to be utilizing those funds. Similarly, the school district has done the same thing, not reducing the amount of expenditures they were having, utilizing the savings account, utilizing one-time funds from the state and federal government with regard to ARPA funds, and it's not lowered the budget. The budget has not gone down, it has continued to increase year over year, as our group has sat there and said, it needs to, and it has not changed. And now we've gotten to the point where we cannot, there's nothing else we can do. It's either we have an override and a substantial one, and the projections are there, but we talked about a change in $200,000. Yes, okay, that'd be great, that's awesome, that's $200,000 less, we have to try to charge more, but at the exact same time, it's not a couple of hundred, it's not a couple $100, it's not, we're talking about a $750,000 override instead of $1 million override. And it just hasn't changed, and as much as I respect what you're saying, that they are projections and they are subject to change, there's no question, but as we shot on the slides earlier, the projection went up, and then it shot up. And that's what's happened with the budget. It hasn't been like, oh, the projection has gone up, or we thought it was gonna go up and it went down. That hasn't happened. And if we, as a community, say to, persons putting together the budget, same together with our select board, this is the reason, this is the direction we want to see forward, then we're happy to go ahead and provide that override. We're happy to provide that budget out there that says, like, this is how much it's gonna cost to continue to have the community with which we have. But the fact of the matter is, if people don't show up to vote, if they don't show up at town meeting, if they don't show up at the ballot, this is like so detrimental to our town that is the reason we have to look at this. If it fails, if we proceed forward with it, and it fails, and the school district does not or refuses to amend their budget based on after our failure of override, we are going to lose $1 million worth of our operating costs. And that devastation to our town is real. There's no mixing the numbers or the words, it is real. If we are assessed that same value, if the school does not choose to reassess, our assessment based upon our override failure, we don't have a library, we have a significantly reduced police force, we have a reduced fire staff, this place is barely open, and we're probably gonna lose talented individuals that help this town run as lean as it is right now. I mean, to even think about the fact that, Dunstable is run by folks from Pepperell. Why? Because it's cheaper for us to do it. And we're making those types of decisions in order to be able to continue this forward, continue the spending. And when you look at the spending, it's pretty easy to break down. 66 to 68% of our overall budgetary cost is the school. There's not, I don't know how else to, I know what you're saying, and I agree. If we can get some momentum moving forward and have people advocate for an override, that's awesome. And I really want to see that happen. I'd love for that to happen. But the fact of the matter is, this is going to be an override year over year because it's not, the projections are still what the projections are, and this only covers us for the first year.
Hang on something, Kathy?
I have a couple of things. One is, I agree with what Whitney was talking about, and I was on the master plan committee several years back, and we did a lot of research and discussion with NIMCOG into different ways that we could bring more revenue into town. And agritourism, ecotourism, a number of things that we brought up were discussed. And I really would like for us, it's part of the solution, it's not the solution. But I really would like to find a way for the board and committees or whoever needs to be involved to start exploring some of the really good options that NIMCOG helped us come up with. Because I do think, while they may not be huge money makers, and it's not the be-all end-all, it's part of the solution. And I really think we have an incredible abundance of opportunity here, just with like the Plume Barn, and with a lot of different areas within town. I really think we need to take a serious look at that. And I really do think it's going to be not only enriching for our community, but it is. We can bring a lot of great experiences here. And I'd like to be a part of that discussion again. The other thing is, I have a question about, there was a mention of unfunded mandates. from DESI or unfunded mandates that are put upon our school system. And I'd like to have an idea of how much that is, what they are, and whether MCAS tests the cost to have that administered is minimal.
So MCAS, aside from the cost of the teachers who administer it, there's not really a cost that's associated with it, the rest of the cost of stuff like DESI. An unfunded mandate might be, if there's an ELL student, they need to have English language, student in English is not their first language. They have to receive so many hours of service. We don't get any, we're so small in our numbers that we don't get a large amount of money for that. Students who might be special education students, right now, special education costs out of district placement are 14% for this school year, and it's projected to go up 4.6% for next school year. An average out of district placement is somewhere between $150,000 and $300,000. So while we do get some money from the state, it's not anywhere near.
Even regional transportation. Yeah.
Regional transportation is another thing. So at the time that regions were incentivized by the state, they were supposed to get 100% regional transportation. I think the most of their funds in 90 or 91. For us, regional transportation reimbursement is $1 million. That's not the whole regional, that's not the whole transportation bill, but that's a lot of money to get that. I'm trying to think of other things that might affect the district on the top of my head.
I mean, this is an unfunded mandate, but the chapter 70 situation, that's state education funding that we receive, the regional school district. So chapter 70 for our particular district is not helpful.
It's below a 1% increase. The same thing with the Student Opportunity Act, which is the Lieutenant Governor this year, talking about the fact that many people in the legislature felt that the Student Opportunity Act, which the vast majority of both semi-tax budget, I happen to know that Drake got a large amount of money from that, that at a meeting with the superintendent, he was happy to tell me. But there are other districts, Lowell, more urban districts, more what they call gateway city districts. Those districts got significantly more money, so therefore it's highly unlikely that we would see an increase in chapter 7.
Okay. We're just, because we're coming, time check, we're coming up on almost about 3 hours here. And I still have some agenda items that we need to get through. So we'll take a couple of more questions. Jones, anything to add, Mrs. Simmons?
Yeah, I've heard some interesting ideas tonight, and I'm glad it sounds like people want to get involved. That's great, because what Jake said about 9 people running this town is just about right. And all those people are on 3 or 4 different boards because nobody, because nobody will come forward and, and help out, okay? So this is not something that the selectmen, need to take charge of. It's something that hopefully you guys can, think about and look into. And anything you come up with, I'm sure everybody will be happy to hear, whatever kind of solution we can come to for this problem. But, the 9 people that are running this town are tapped out. And so we need you guys to pitch it.
John, did you have a question?
Well, I had an idea, I'll talk about it later.
We'll just take a couple more and then we're gonna stop. Right, yeah, yes.
My name is Kelly, I'm on Depot Street. I talked to some of my neighbors who don't have children, and I can understand. They've been in the town for a long time, and they don't want to pass the override. They feel this is just historically, this is what the town does, we need an override, we need an override. How can you as a board, and maybe also us that are here, how can we go out and show that we're taking action and we're coming up with other solutions
to solve the problem, to not just keep voting for overrides, because if we're gonna get the vote, we need to, communicate, we need to spread the people that are hesitant to vote for the override, what other action are we doing besides, here's the start of the discussion, but what are we gonna do to tell them we're taking action, other actions to solve the problem besides the school issue?
So I think someone mentioned it, maybe it was Lacey, or creating, an advocacy group within your own sphere of influence is really powerful. Like I love my neighbors on Alexander Way. We hang out. They have to deal with all my painful explanations about what's going on because they're just, I feed them Bud Lights and try to get them to hang out. So I think, talking with your own folks about what's working well for yourself, like that's great. You've gotten to know your people, your neighbors. That's huge. And I agree with Jake, and I agree the short-term solution is some type of override, and that stinks because I'm thinking about my wife and I, and $1,000 probably means we're not going to go on a trip, or it may not, something like that. It impacts your budget. That you're there. I see you're nodding your head, like that impacts soccer camp for your kids, or field hockey camp, whatever it is, drama camp. So that is the likely short-term solution. In the meantime, I've taken notes here in terms of ideas. It's reassessing fees. And I think, looking at our neighbors and what their fees are, and maybe we'll be higher. Maybe that's what it is. Like that. Because we're trying to find a way to piece it together. Is it ecotourism? The select board has the power to put out RFPs. And we tried to for the cell phone tower, but on the water, no one took it. My cell service is so frustrating. I can't have a conversation in my own house, which is baffling. So we're trying to adapt and find ways to get people to come and engage with us. Things like that outside of the override, which is going to be painful. I don't have any children. Like I have no skin in that game other than I support education. Both my parents are educators, and I work for colleges. I work for private boarding schools. I understand the value quite well, to be honest, and what it means long term. I'm a public school product from where I grew up. I think I turned out all right, but you guys can do the judging here. So I think it's finding those things that are important and working with your neighbors. And if they say they don't know, just be ready for your 2-minute elevator pitch, because I usually am. I think everyone who's seen me at Dunkin' Donuts, I really almost every day come here, like they're probably sick of me. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Nextdoor. Rafi and Lacey are there too, so they're your allies in the community to reach out and work with and ask questions of. So that's kind of a long-winded story in terms of what, how we can
Social
get.
media is really important because I think a lot of us appreciate you putting the post you put out. And the one.
It wasn't super literal, it wasn't very good grammar, so don't blame my mom.
You got the message. But I think if there's any way to have these groups, you need it to associate with you guys. One person from the group attends the meeting and put some onus on us. I have no problem with that. But we have to have a connect to have us put groups together and you guys to want to hear from us. And then we have to have the reception and then the actual happening. There's someone I've been texting with who owns a good amount of land due to a mud law. She can't build in here, can't build there. And after 20 years, they're just sick of trying. But it's like, okay, we need to step back and really grasp the things that we have the capability of doing, because we do. But it's actually reach out to us and have expectations of us and us to show you that we do. And I think everyone in this room should really think hard. We need police, we need fire, we need the school, we need the library. We have minimum. Having.
Imagine having less.
Huh?
Imagine having less.
Oh my God. And not having a police on at night is catastrophic. Dialing 911, I'm a nurse, I'm in emergency rooms. It's catastrophic. I know I've been able to make phone calls and say, I need ALS. There's somebody that, something that just happened in my neighborhood that's serious. And it's like, to think we live in this town and we don't even have a reaction to save a life like you would if you lived in the surrounding towns. So everything does technically have to be supported. And while we fix the short-term problem, we gotta start right now to plan the 3 years ahead. We all gotta start doing a piece. And it has to be received, and we have to make some headway and receive progress. And I think it's all solvable, everything here tonight, except for the fact we need money to show up.
Town's been here for 350 years, and pretty sure it'll be here 350 more after.
Well, you've watched some Christmas shows, like towns can change based on one person.
If I can just say, you know, in having a town administrator like Jason, he is constantly evaluating our finances and our budgets in ways to reduce things by combining positions, joining up with Pepperell, doing mutual, intermunicipal agreements, reviewing our health insurance plans, reviewing our Verizon contracts, our telephone. He's constantly looking at that stuff. You may not see that because we can't send out a daily info chart to everyone and saying, oh, well, Jason did this today, I tried to reduce this. Oh, sorry, we had to tell an employee, no, we can't give you the raise we wanted because we can't afford it. It is, these little things are happening on a daily basis. They may just not be visible to you, but they are happening. I mean, trust me, we're not just skating along here thinking, oh, well, for the override, I want to be fine. That is not what we're doing. We are doing everything possible and trying to stay legal to keep our costs down. We love this town. I grew up here. I went to Groton Middle High School. I've been involved in the town since 1993, and this is my full-time job, honestly, for this much money. I get twice as much as these guys. Literally, I love this place. And I love the school system. I love our open space. We have worked very, very, very hard to acquire this open space, which so many of you say, we love it. We love it. We get to walk there during COVID. It was invaluable. How many people went to places they never knew were before? So these are properties, we're gonna say, you can't just now all of a sudden change your mind and decide you're gonna sell a piece of open space land. First of all, you had a commitment to the town to buy it in the first place. Secondly, it was bought as open space and it's protected by chapter Article 97. If you want to remove that land, you need to find an equal amount somewhere in the town. So it's not gonna, it just doesn't. So if I'm not shutting it down, I'm just giving you an explanation as to why selling a piece of town land like that isn't gonna work.
But what
If
is?
you find a use for it, yeah, maybe.
I'm just suggesting that. Yeah, that is for instance.
Renting. What about some of the land that?
All right, hold on a sec, hold on, we're gonna take a couple more questions, and then we're gonna stop. We're coming up on the 3-hour mark. I'll take 2 more questions, and then we're gonna stop. Sir, right there on the left.
Hi, Dan Corsi, also from Judy Road, a couple of us. We have respectfully, a lot of what you just articulated has to do with reducing expenditures. And there hasn't been a lot of discussion tonight, at least from what I'm hearing on stage, about how do we increase revenue.
That's what we're looking at.
The long-term issue with this town is revenue, right? We have a short-term issue that if we don't fund an override, I heard the word catastrophic. It sounds catastrophic, right? There's nothing we can do in the short term. We have to solve it with an override. I think the state's reason. Long-term, how do we raise revenue? So further to a question, can we use some of the land that the town owns? And your response is historically the town has voted to preserve open spaces. But you didn't answer the question directly. Could we vote as a town to repurpose that land? Could we lease the land as a revenue generating opportunity that's in line with sort of our cultural ethos?
So, some of those properties, possibly, some of them have deed restrictions on how they can be used. If many of the lands that were purchased with town money, either through the Community Preservation Committee and then received a grant, a matching 60% grant from the state, is very specific on how the lands can be used. So maybe some of them could, others no, others yes, some that are owned by, there's one with an answer.
So what I'm saying is, yes, there's potential opportunity to generate income based on some of the land the town owns. What I heard earlier is we might do a study to see what the expenditure or what it would cost to separate from the regional school district, right?
Yes.
Yes. So that's a study to figure out how we can reduce expenditures. Is there a study being proposed how we can generate more income as a community in Boston?
I think we talk about it all the time, there's not a specific group that's doing that, but it is on our, this is discussed probably at every single select board
So
meeting that
what
we
do
have.
we need to do to get that study started? Because I'm just not clear, right? Because if we're gonna study how to reduce expenditure, shouldn't we also be studying how to increase the top line?
Didn't we, that was part of what MINCOG provided to us when we did the master plan. When we
Yeah.
actually did the master plan.
There, like, how many copies of the master plan are in there?
It's on the website.
Yeah.
The answer is
Okay.
So
yes.
I
I
don't
just-
think the
can I
study
just-
is necessary.
hold on a second.
I think
Something.
it's like what you were saying, we have to take action. We have to start forming advocacy or committees and start talking about what are the ways we can do this, and then we need to meet with the communities and commissions that own or manage properties like the Clue, who, by the way, the ROT has said, we want ideas from the community on how we can leverage this good farm that we've been growing. So I have a bunch of ideas of how we can use it. So I really think it's a matter of more people getting involved, volunteering your time, stepping up and talking and getting things done.
Sorry.
Well, the McClue Farm is privately owned by the Municipal World Interest. We can't dictate to them what they can and cannot do with farms. Just like all the farms, they're privately owned. We can't tell them to start agriculture.
One additional question. So out behind, I walked through the town forest and the Ugly Brook Wildlife Management Area, and at some point out behind Ross Farm, we bumped into a wildly large solar plantation.
Privately owned.
Privately owned, right, but I'm wondering, could the town, have we studied investing in energy infrastructure?
We actually, yes, and 91 River Street, we were working with a company to put a small solar field there, which would have brought us in a good,
Significant chunk of revenue.
And what happened is that the grant, the one that was going to help support the funding of this company to do the project was a USDA grant, and it was determined that the soils were.
They're preservation soils, so it doesn't qualify for a USDA grant to support the
So
investigation.
is there an opportunity to look at other land in the town to generate, because it's significant revenue, which would help solve our long-term revenue problem? Are we actively looking at other places where we could do such a thing?
Yeah.
We did, on other properties, there was one for the Dumont property, and the town had the opportunity to purchase it, and that was voted down. And that would have been a potential to put senior housing, some business, and small solar.
All right, maybe final question, are we done looking at land? It sounds like we're done. Are we still looking at land?
No, we're still looking.
Okay.
So the River Street project, again, that, we have a solar overlay there, but there are a few problems. It wasn't just that
Right,
grant thing.
right.
It's also the fact that the
Yeah,
cost of bringing
infrastructure.
three-phase electricity to that would have been a significant amount of money, and a company that was looking at it was not willing to put that money
But
forward.
would we be willing to do three-phase electricity if it could bring significant revenue and figure out how to?
I'm gonna tell you, the problem with River Street is that significant electricity was $22 million worth of fit out that had to occur, because you had to run a line all the way down from 113, and it was, you know, if you go drive by Goss Farm, the rear lot of Goss Farm has 23,000 solar panels in it. And the utility company spent something like $18 million upgrading the power infrastructure so it could take power from the solar farm. To just say that, listen, we got a piece of land, let's put some solar panels on it. Great idea. It doesn't always necessarily work when the utility infrastructure is not there to support taking power from that solar field. In 91 River, and I was heavily involved in 91 River, we had, I think it was like 46 poles that had to get changed. It was very significant. And it takes the revenue from that thing all that many more years just to pay for the build out for the utilities. It's not always a slam dunk just to locate solar panels. And if you're gonna put in 20 solar panels, you're probably not gonna.
We have, land rich, and my supposition is that there might be opportunities.
And there could be, but it does take time, plus you do need a solar company to come in and sponsor that program.
Even outside of solar, I'm with you, because at heart, Lee and I don't see eye to eye on this all the time. In my belief, we're gonna have to develop some town-owned parcels in order to catch up and to become more drawn. I won't go too long into this as a board.
We'll start our.
Yeah, because Lee and I won't agree, but, all right, we just have to find a way. I don't disagree with it, so.
I mean,
All right,
there's tons of federal money available for that type of work.
Could I?
Not all, but we're gonna have just, I'm gonna ask the town administrator, he's gonna have some closing comments, and then we're gonna close this item because we're coming up on the 3-hour mark, Mr. Time Check.
So real quickly, I think it's fair to say that the fact that on the agenda tonight is withdrawal from or modification of the school district is a sign that everything needs to be on the table, okay? And so there's been a lot of good discussion, a lot of good debate, a lot of good ideas here that we need to figure out as a town how to synthesize and continue this conversation. And that's something that we're gonna have to, how we can do that. So more to come on that. There are a lot of plans Kathy was mentioning, like we do have a really good master plan. We have other plans in place that a lot of analysis have been done. And this happens in a lot of communities. We do the plans, they sit on the shelf, and then we gotta dust them back off a little bit and look at them and refresh them. And maybe that's some work that needs to get done. But I gotta tell you, it ain't happening with the staff we have in this building. We don't have any. We have 3 full-time staff members, 3. And then the rest are part-time. We rely on volunteers to get this work done. It's not gonna happen with us. So this is great, but it can't be just tonight. If it's,
Take our names,
if
numbers.
it's just tonight, nothing's going to happen, okay? So we really need continued engagement around this. And I think we need to remember too that, some of us are sparring a little bit, and we do that almost every one of the advisory meetings. We spar and we fight, but we fight like family, not like enemies. And that's what we gotta do. We can fight. Well, maybe just my family, but we have to, it's okay to fight. It's okay to have these discussions, but it's gotta be like family. We're in this together. And we have a problem we have to fix, okay? We don't have a choice here. But we're family. We have what's best for the town at heart and in mind. And we have to keep that in mind when we're getting mad at each other around, why don't you see it this way? Why don't you see it my way? I mean, I have my own personal opinions. I'm a blow-in. Is it blow-in? Blow hard. I'm serious. Like, this is really important stuff. And we have staff here who are killing themselves to make this place work. And they're scared. They're scared because they are scared to lose because the finance is so bad. And I've had department head meetings where I can see it in their face, okay? So it's not, we have to fix this. We have to figure it out. I just want to encourage, please stay involved. Like, there are things that we can do. Everything needs to be on the table. And we have to talk about them and fight about them and come to recommendations that can move us forward, not just the short term, but really over the course of time, as you were suggesting. That needs to happen. Two last things. I've worked in other communities. I'm telling you, have your own opinion. The individuals that I will get to work with on a day-to-day basis volunteer. This board, the advisory board, school committee members. Never in my life have I been able to work with people like this. They are more committed to this community than any community I've ever worked with by a lot. They are unbelievable, and they get no money for it. They do it because they want to do what's best for the community. And lastly, we are trying. I know it's not perfect, and we're going to continue to improve upon it. We've really put an effort on communicating better to the community, and we do it on our website. You should visit it often. You should sign up for the news and announcement alerts if you haven't already. If you don't follow us on Facebook, please do, because we push a lot of information out on that. Instagram, we're doing more engagement within the community. I'm doing my own coffees, so you can come. The 16th at Farmhouse Cafe, and yell at me all you want, and I'm even buying you coffee. So come and you can do that too. But we are trying to engage the community as much as we can. 10 o'clock. 16th Thursday.
It'd be really nice to call us out tonight. If you don't want to volunteer, you can start any type of action committee that people can feel that they
can be involved, we appreciate you, just like yourself.
Yeah.
But it's not always, it hasn't in the past, but I feel like in the past number of years, it's gotten better. But even myself, like I said, I got shut down 20 years ago, and I was like, see ya. I'm an avid volunteer at a lot of places. I can switch right to here if I have the welcoming and the, yes, you could be abused, yes, you can do this, thank you for the help, do this.
So that's our takeaway. So that's what I think that's what we need to figure out is how do we harness the energy in this room and put it into action? So I think that's our job, and that's what we really need to focus on, and that's what we are going to focus on.
Everyone has something that they can do.
Okay, we're gonna move along here now and close that item. For those who want to stay, please do. We have a couple of other items that we're gonna talk about.
If you had any of your questions that were not answered, my information's on Facebook. You can call, message, drive by my house, I'll probably ready to see you tomorrow. If you feel unheard, just reach out.
Okay, good. All right, well, that's helpful. That's helpful.
I love you guys.
All right. We're gonna leave, let's leave, otherwise, please sit, we do need to finish the meeting, and I would like to get back on our agenda. And item, number 7 is, special town meeting warrant in resident question and answer period. Jason, do you have that?
So really, does everybody know what we're talking about for next week for warrant? It's got a couple different topics on it.
For our slides.
It's kind of long. I mean, we've been here
Long
for a
day?
while. We've been.
You only got 4 articles.
I know, but PFAS is not a simple issue.
The first one's unpaid bills, that's pretty routine, it's like a cell phone bill or a gas bill. They're not absorbent, they're pretty normal bills, so that's the first article. Article 2 gets into a town center zoning bylaw change that our planning board and select board have supported. And essentially, it's gonna give life to 11 Pleasant Street, which is the red and yellow barn. A local resident and their partner are looking to open up a small, self-run wine, potentially wine, maybe cheese, depending on the evolution of it.
I was thinking the general store, so I lost track of what.
Yep, this is the red and yellow barn, Pleasant Street, right next to a farmhouse.
The old stoneworks building. Go back.
So again, it's a local resident, they live there, they refurbished it, it's beautiful. They want to open up like a wine and cheese specialty.
It's a boutique wine.
Wine, liquor,
Wine.
beer, and, spirits, specialty spirits.
So it's not cheese because of the way it's the product type that's considered, so it's specifically wine. Spirits, like mead from the colony down in Tingsboro, that type of product line. And this zoning bylaw will support them being able to open that business. Because the way the bylaw is set now, it forbids them.
So
There's an application for a liquor store at the general store.
That's separate.
That's a completely different thing. Also, another privately owned business that are looking to do that. And that is being reviewed at the alcohol.
It was approved.
Approved.
They got their license.
It was approved by ABCC, yeah.
So this is a separate little business in the town center.
Not a ton of tax revenue, but a place to go to have a craft glass of wine.
So the water indoor seating.
Oh, no.
Be some
It's a
indoor
retail
seating.
store, they're,
No.
they're not gonna be pouring wine there. You go in, you know, they are professionals, you know, in the business, and their idea is to offer, you know, to be able to, you know, give advice to people, you know, for different things. I think they're gonna have some, you
Some
know,
type of business.
yeah, it's
We're trying, you know, scratching.
It's a high-end wine and liquor store, but there will be no pouring on site. It's a retail establishment.
no nips, no live.
Like a wine tasting, like you
No.
All right, hold on a second. Stuart, do you have a question?
Obviously, I'm pro, business, in terms of, the community, but, can we understand, like, so if this business goes in, how exactly does it generate revenue for the home?
Just
In its first iteration, none right now, it's all the same tax rate. But
Well, no.
generates some-
new growth. You get new growth with the investment in the property. So any of the improvements, you capture new growth.
So we
So that-
capture the assessed value of the property.
So you're able to capture new growth in the first year. New growth is any new development or new, like if you add an addition onto your house. You're allowed to tax 2.5% under Prop 2.5. But you're also, in addition to 2.5, you're allowed to capture what they call new growth. And that's any additional investment in properties that you capture in addition to the 2.5. So it's an addition, it's a new home, it's a investment in a downtown business. It's those type of things that then you're able to capture. And then that increases the tax levy beyond the 2.5%.
I don't want to read between the lines, but I think John asked, so we don't tax the business based on their income.
We tax personal property.
Personal property,
Personal
not
property.
based on their income,
Yeah.
no.
So do other, this is the dumb question, like, do other towns anywhere tax based on business income?
You're only allowed to tax, local communities are allowed to tax properties only in the manner that the state allows it to.
Properties are properties, but if they're a business, like if the business started turning over $10 million a year, we don't get anything like that. Is that-
Couldn't there be,
It-
tax like, town, like sales tax or something?
No.
Like similar to like the meals tax, is it meals tax?
Yeah, so that's a local, so that's a local option tax. So yes, but only in the way that the state allows. So it's meals, hotel, you can do a local option tax on meals, in hotel, in motel. And you can also do a local option tax on marijuana retail. There may be others, those are the three that I'm aware of. But not in like, the general store, like you couldn't do it here.
But if a restaurant.
Except for Dunkin' Donuts.
But if a restaurant went in, for example.
Yes.
We would be able to tax that, and we would be able to get a percentage of the revenue versus this, which is on the assessed value of the property itself and the capital improvements.
Yes.
We don't have a meals
We don't
tax.
have a meals tax.
We don't, but we could pass a
could.
a law or warrant, whatever the proper.
Yes.
To levy that.
So I'd have to talk to the assessor to better understand, if, like you said, if a business goes from $100,000 to $2 million a year, do we capture that in the value of the property? I don't think we're able to do that, but I want to preface it, I could be wrong about that in some way.
Sir, do you have a question?
I said, which line
They have a meals tax.
So they have another assessment, special assessment tax.
Do they have, well, Groton has a split tax rate.
If you look at the revenue from the override, Groton's investment in zoning commercial properties for the last 10 years, which is 2008, it's basically supported that program and made a number of new facilities in town. So this would be something.
So you're allowed to shift the tax rates, you're allowed to shift the burden more on commercial than than residential. So if you have a large enough commercial tax base, a lot of, like Karen was saying, a lot of the larger cities shift the tax rate so that the commercial properties pay a larger portion than residents.
What's that percentage based on? Is that based on zoning or is that based on the actual revenue?
No, you can move it however you like, really. You can shift it, but here in Dunstable, if you were to shift it even the slightest bit, because commercial is, the base here is so small, you crush the business community. You just crush it.
You don't have to just do one thing at a time, you can do two things at a time. Right? You can basically change your zoning, which encourages commercial, and at the same time change how you're taxing it.
You'd want to, yes to the first one. I think my personal opinion would be, I think you'd want to wait to shift until there was sufficiently large enough commercial base so that they could absorb the shift in tax.
So you're saying move business in first and then tax?
Yeah.
Well, if that was the community's direction and that was set, if that was what the community wanted to do, yes, I would say to do it before there's a commercial base would not be.
But even say you have 10, like you had in the next year or two, 10 businesses, and they're paying an average household 10 to 15,000, say, I'm heading towards 15, and they're taxed at that. You're still over $100,000 in the black that you weren't before doing that. And then you have a long-term plan on top of that. But the idea is they're not bringing kids into the school system, which is great. I mean, I just think it's part of, as you would fall in the short-term solution, that would be part of the long-term solution. But it's a lot of work to do it, but it just sounds like it's inevitable. Like I said, if you don't pick your change, you pick the other.
Are you saying that you can't just change the tax rate on businesses by like a half percentage or a fractional percentage? It has to be like, just like the way you explained, how, tax rate on businesses would change. I cannot really follow on that. Maybe you could explain a little bit more, like, why couldn't we just on businesses change by a fractional percent or a little bit, just to bring in a little bit more?
No, it wouldn't,
To look to see if we did change a little bit, how much more revenue would that bring us?
Yeah, it wouldn't bring more. It's the same pot of money, you're just shifting the burden. So you're collecting the same exact amount. You're just saying, you know what, we're gonna put more heavy burden on the commercial base than the residential base.
Like
You'd be better off just increasing the fees. Like she said, say, like, if it's $200 to have Dunkin' Donuts open for the year, you say to the franchise owner, we're gonna now, our fee went up to $500. You're better off that way rather than shifting the tax burden, because then you can be left with nothing.
So the tax rate, so we can't tax more than 2.5%. So all the residents are now paying, we're going to be taxed at that 2.5%. If we have more businesses and commercials, we still have to stay at that 2.5%, but you could shift, so you shift it so that the commercial and businesses would pay more, but then you would lower the residential side, but you're still capped at how much you can bring in.
Overall as a town.
Overall.
Correct.
Which is arbitrary numbers, then.
Yeah.
I did, Harold won't raise his hand. He claims that Groton has only one tax.
A flat rate, they might, yeah.
They do have a meals tax. We're still trying, they do market control. So just
With all their business over there, they still, do not
Is that true? I don't think that's
I believe it, because before here, I was in Marblehead, which has two really thriving commercial centers, and we kept a flat tax rate because of if we shifted it, the burden and they had not a huge commercial base, but a commercial base. Shifting it just put such a heavy toll on the commercial property owners, they didn't want to do it either, so I believe that.
I mean, you figure that a couple businesses that you would do it to Rose Sharon and the farmhouse and the general store, and if you would increase their tax rate even just a little bit, it would be really difficult for them.
Well, this is because we're only counting businesses with storefronts, that's a bigger definition, and arguing that's not the case in the town.
But I think that's sort of, I mean, I'm not an expert on this at all, but my understanding is that's the type of business. But the other, like home business, home office business, where you don't have a storefront.
And I think that
your
property has to be zoned as business to be assessed at the business tax rate. So if the property isn't zoned as business because they're operating out of the house, then it's not going to permit there.
You need a home office permit. I mean, we do have that already, whether the fee is in accordance with everybody.
Business certificates.
How do you capture the I don't want to say illegal, but the underground businesses that are running in town?
No idea.
There are underground.
Well, if you know, give us a list.
Yeah, I mean, we do you have to do cyclical assessments, so, you have to get to each property, so, but the idea of, if there are in-home businesses, for instance, you are allowed to assess the equipment or whatever's in the house that is used to support the business function. But, does a computer support the business function, or is it for personal use? Is it, so it gets a little difficult to untangle.
And how about all the people that are working from home? How does that,
How do you define
How does that,
business versus working from home? Well, you're an employee.
Right.
We're still on Article 3.
Yeah.
Two. We're on two.
We're in Article 3, which is the changing of the name.
Yeah.
Article 3 on the warrant is going to be to change, we're asking the town to change the name of the Board of Selectmen to the Select Board. It's just the way the world works today. They're really not called Board of Selectmen. Most towns have already changed that. We tried it a couple of years ago.
We tried it last year, but it was incorporated into the
Something
TA bylaw, TA special act. And when that got voted down, this name change got voted down with it. So we're just putting some standalone article.
Is there any cost of doing that?
No.
It's just something that has to be proven, cost and quality, that's it.
Just nothing.
The documents have to be filed with the town council, who probably participate in the files. There'd be some Article 4 on the warrant. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just had a question about Article 3. Is there any change to the governance of the town?
No.
Simply a name.
It's just a name
That
change.
was a rumor going on.
Yeah.
I know, that was a fun one.
I
I
saw
saw
that's why
that.
it got voted down the last time, and because people are like, you can't change the way the town is governed, but you're saying it's just.
It's a name change, purely a name change. We were gonna go with the Board of Select Women, but these didn't want to go.
I'm pretty open-minded, I'll do that.
All right. Anybody else on Article 3? All right, Article 4. Article 4 is going to be to ask the town to fund our portion of phase 1 of the PFAS mitigation project. And, you know, I think I have a little speech about PFAS. PFAS is a forever chemical. Showed up in the wells at Groton Dunstable about 2 years ago.
Been in the wells.
22. It's been around, it's been in the wells quite a while, but the levels at Groton Dunstable are off the charts. They're 5 times what they should be at the high school. And so this funds phase 1 of.
And our portion of 2.
Right, so that we get the school system would, the high school would be connected to the municipal water side in Groton. Go ahead.
My question about this, and I'm sure it's been explained already, but is the state helping mitigate this cost?
So there is a possibility that the state will help, but we haven't, it's just not, they don't have that money available right now,
Do you
so.
know if I don't know if this is considered commercial, a commercial property, but like when we had scalings out to our house to do our routine maintenance, we asked for a PFAS test and they said, look up and see if you're in like an area of concern. And if you are, then call the state because they will actually pay for the test and then they'll pay for the mitigation system. I assume that doesn't apply here?
Well, that's not true. No, that's not true. We
There's no
have,
practice always test for water.
so if you're in which street do you live on?
Jamie Road, so we're like down from high school, so we were wondering.
We're like specifically, we're about 200 or 300 feet outside of the pool. And so we are not inside the pool, but if I had to guess, we're also affected.
Well, I'm a lot closer to that school, we got tested in Central October, and we tested at 0. So,
Is it a safety thing?
I don't know who paid for it.
School district pays for it.
So we were inside the public land, we're so, we.
But I just was wondering if there was any state money.
The school.
It's not.
Around this.
It's around the state.
Numerous other districts, Somerville, in the, by the way, I love school big. Numerous districts are dealing with the exact same problem.
And is it true that the level has risen? Because I had a son in high school a few years ago,
I graduated in district 2010, so believe you me, well, this way, hold on, I think, to answer your question,
I thought the freshmen had changed the tolerance.
there is like a radius for the plume, if you will,
Yeah.
but they're projecting, because it's groundwater and whatnot, it might.
But the threshold for PFAS level.
It went down.
Down,
The
right?
state level, the one in minus is allowed, went down.
I know, so if it's changing the rules,
Yes.
can they change? They're changing.
That's a fine question.
Yeah.
So I have Senator Lindsey's business card.
So we are in this together with the town of Groton. And so the town of Groton has there's a grant program right now for small water systems, which we do have a grant in with the state with Mass DEP. The applications are currently being reviewed, but we've been in contact with DEP a lot about this project. And because of the regional nature of the project, we feel like it's a pretty competitive application. We'll see, there's no guarantees, but that is one avenue that we may be able to secure some funding. We've had 2 Zoom meetings with Senator Kennedy, with Rep. Scarsdale, and with Senator and Rep. from Groton. I can't. Cronin. Thank you. Rep. Sana and Senator Cronin. They are doing work at the State House to see if there are other avenues at the state level where they may be able to get either through the supplemental budget coming in December, I think, or other avenues to help get us more money. And then Congresswoman Trahan's office, we've been in regular communication with them too. So we're working collaboratively with every level to try to figure out a way to lessen the burden on residents here as much as possible. Yep.
Sean, you
So
have a
this would
question?
be for phase one, and those grants you're discussing will be then for further phases of the project?
Yes,
Possibly?
yes, that's the idea right now. So phase one would be it's like $1.89 million contribution from the town of Dunstable. The phase two portion is about 1.5 million for both communities, so it's a total of 3.1 million. And so the idea is that 3.1, hopefully, if we're able to secure some grants and other state funding or federal funding, that will offset the additional cost of the second phase.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So what's the 1.89 million spent on? Is it legal support or what?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. The what?
What is the 1.89 million allocated for? Is it spent on legal fees or on water?
No, the money is water line construction.
For the design.
Or for the water line construction?
Yeah, there's no legal fees.
Because is anybody monitoring the class action suits pending against 3M and on the web?
We're not, no, the state may be.
The cause of our PFAS issue was a fire that happened at the high school back in 2003. They were, right, and the firefighting foam was what's contaminated.
I believe the school district is looking into it, we have already joined. One of the, yeah, the top ones. That was my second.
It's 3M went through a crisis, this year. They had to reduce their dividend and, took a major hit on the stock price for PFAS mitigation, because they were doing major sources of the PFAS chemical.
Do you need a motion for that? Is a motion carried?
No, I don't have a question. No.
You're all set?
Unless-
I'm sorry, do we have one more question?
Once the water line goes in, is there like a set rate that what you charge the school district will know it?
Well, it will be coming through Groton. The Groton water line is going to be bringing water to the high school. And a few houses. Yeah.
We're gonna help Groton put in that water line.
So this right here, you see this line right here? That's first phase. It goes into the high school. This is from Groton. Goes into the high school, goes up Groton Street in Dunstable, goes to Kemp Street in Dunstable, and then goes all the way to North Street in Groton. So that,
What will it be to charge in the future for?
Groton will have,
Yeah.
they have a rate that all the people that are on that blue line there will be charged by Groton.
For water consumption.
School district will pay Groton, and we will pay them as part of our 23%.
And do we know what that rate's going to be and how much water
The water bill for the high school is gonna be about $35,000 a year.
So 23% of
Is
that.
that just for us, or, okay?
No, that's the water bill, it's the consumption at the high school.
And that is still in their budget, and then.
It's an operating expense.
Right now, the water bill is very expensive at school because it's all bottles of water. All the cooking and all the drinking and everything is all done with giant jugs, and so it's a very expensive water bill. It's actually less water expensive for water when it's on the line.
Right now, they're using bottled water.
What's the implications?
We're done. Special town election, early voting.
You didn't mention, or you mentioned it earlier, I think, but, so how much is this gonna cost, the town for this project? For this phase one?
for phase one, it's right up there, 14.6%, 1.863.
I'm sorry, what's our, is it yearly, or the debt exclusion? What does that
So-
add to our tax base?
So phase one is annual debt service of $62,293. That is 47, why am I looking at it? Yeah, I have it right in front of me and I'm looking at that. It's been a long night.
Less than 48.
So that, yeah, the first phase is 47, the second phase is 41 for a total of 8880. Now, I do want to preface that though by saying that phase 2 dollar figure, I don't want to be overconfident here, but I do think there's a good likelihood that it won't be as much as that because of additional funding sources from the state or the federal government.
But because it's a debt exclusion and because it's over 30 years, it's not going to put us in the poorhouse. It's gonna be relatively inexpensive.
They're already.
Yeah, comparatively, yes, yeah.
Like the school budget, but I decided.
Yeah. And I will say, just to point out too, we do have a front end loader right now that is excluded debt that is falling off. Our last payment is in 25, and that payment is 54,000. So excluded debt is coming off 54,000. We are adding, what is it? We're adding 62. So, the debt service is set, it's sort of consistent. It's not a huge growth in debt service. So.
Do you have a question, sir?
Yeah, I'm sorry for my ignorance on the topic here. I don't know what the CPA stands for.
Community Preservation Act.
Okay, and then the second one is we're talking about the debt service. At what rates do we get when we're taking on the debt?
So for this particular project, we expect that we'll get a zero interest loan because the state, for projects like this, we can use the state revolving fund, which is 0% interest. And let me pull this. So for this portion right here, this is coming from Pepperell into Groton and connecting North Street. So this potentially, if Pepperell is the lead borrower, they're also an environmental justice community. And so they may actually be able to get no interest and principal forgiveness on this portion. So that may, if we don't get the state assistance that we're hoping for, that will very likely reduce this amount by some.
That's great information. Thanks for sharing. I bet many people in the community would like to know that we were able to get a zero rate on that.
Yeah.
So it would be something good.
Okay.
That's squarely as a thanks to Jason's work.
Yeah.
So he deserves all the credit for busting his butt. That's what a good town administrator does. Because it's not something the three of us could figure out on our own, so.
We did a humble brag.
Okay, no more questions? Item number 8, special town election early voting. You have a motion on this, right?
Yeah, it should be in there.
Yeah.
Tab 8.
I move to approve the temporary town clerk's request to offer early voting for all local elections.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those who want early voting information, check with the town clerk. It's also given on the website.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Administrators report?
You guys are good. You have.
You all set?
It's been long.
We never had a-
Town election, special town election is November 3rd.
Yes, sir.
We haven't changed that date.
Sorry.
We've not changed that date.
Right, isn't elections always on a Tuesday?
What?
Isn't elections always on a Tuesday?
No.
Doesn't have to be. We typically have that.
Okay.
But we're having it Thursday because Thanksgiving falls between
Oh, that was
town
right.
meeting and
Yeah.
when we.
That's right.
Just a variance.
Is there any reason why not on November 7th, like most towns have their?
Time, you have to have a certain amount of time between the special town meeting and then the ballot voting.
It's all a matter of that. It's
Equation.
And it all started when the time the clock starts, was when we
Open the
decided we were going to have a special town meeting. We had, legitimate reasons to have one. And ours was on there, and then that starts the clock for how many days before you open the warrant and then close the warrant, and that's to be submitted.
Just a comment, as a personal, like a Luddite, I don't Facebook and some other things, and I really like the sign that we put out front. Everybody loves it.
Everyone loves that, yeah, yeah.
Like, I would really.
Yeah. All right.
We should put that out.
Fine.
The sign feedback's unbelievable.
It saved me so many times because I forget in the moment and I'm driving by and I'm like, I knew it was a vote today.
So you always
See
pay
the sign, and instead of turning left, I go straight.
No.
I personally made some of the signs that you put out there and purchased other.
They are very valuable things.
Thank you.
Any other items?
Unless there's any questions, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have any other stuff from you?
No, I will second that motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you everybody for coming. Again, you can always reach out to us. Very expensive.
Great job, guys.